Zohran Mamdani has figured out a way to get a rent freeze passed in New York City. Tenants are celebrating. Landlords are in absolute terror. And no one really knows what the outcome of this is going to be. But truthfully, we all know what the outcome is going to be. But no one seems to be willing to be honest about what we all know. You're going to want to share this one with your socialist friend, your communist friend, your liberal friend. Will socialism save New York City? Will it be a success or will it be an utter failure? Welcome back to Defiant Brandon. I am Brandon Tucker. Welcome back to Accountability. Let's tap in.
The motion passes.
From the top of a balcony to down by the stage, rent-stabilized New Yorkers erupted in celebration. For the first time ever, the Rent Guidelines Board voted to freeze rents on both 1- and 2-year leases. A historic decision that means more than 1 million New Yorkers living in rent-stabilized apartments won't pay $1 more in rent for the next 2 years. All but one board member voted in favor of the measure, with Mayor Zohran Mamdani calling it a historic victory for New Yorkers.
It means everything. It means that our voices were heard, finally.
Bronx tenant Ann Maiden says she can finally breathe again.
It means that maybe I can go on a trip. Maybe I can afford to make my bills meet at the end of the month.
Well, the more than 1 million New Yorkers are now celebrating this rent freeze. Landlords say they will not be able to maintain the costs to keep these buildings running, and they'll have to make cuts somewhere.
We'll have to lay off some of the supers. Only choice. It's a business. People don't get it. This is a business. It's not a choice that you think this is for free.
Small property owners say they were shut out of the process. The board's only landlord representative who remained voted in favor of the rent freeze, while the other, Christina Smith, resigned just hours before the vote. On LinkedIn, Smith criticized the board, writing it was no longer a, quote, fact-finding body. She pointed to data showing that while net operating income for rent-stabilized buildings rose just over 6% citywide, it fell by as much as 13% in some Bronx neighborhoods.
The money that the building is generating in rents is not sufficient to pay the expenses that are coming due. And those expenses are expenses that we have no control over.
The board's only no vote came from a public representative. The remaining landlord representative who voted yes did so with caution, saying the city must find a way to reduce operating costs for the building's owners. But for now, rent-stabilized tenants are breathing a sigh of relief. In East Harlem, Mike Lamort, News 12.
Okay, so there you have it. New York passes a historic rent freeze. Tenants who are under 1- or 2-year leases will not pay $1 more for rent for the next 2 years. Now, you might want to get your pen and paper out for this one. I invite any of the socialists who come in here tonight, any of the fake communists who come here tonight, I invite them to come up to the stage and explain to us why this works. My job here, because this is a requested show, my job is to explain why this doesn't work, why it will never work. It has actually been passed in other cities around the world, in other countries, and every single time it was an utter failure. Tag your socialist friend, tag your liberal friend, tag the blue-haired freaks. I'm living in Cali. I'm telling you, it's not going to work. But you don't have to believe me. You do not have to believe me. Let's get to it. So here are the reasons why it's not going to work. And there are 10 of them. I'm going to give you 10 reasons why it's not going to work. Then we're going to get into this other topic of Zohran Mamdani opening up a city-operated grocery store in New York. And I'm going to tell you why that's not going to work either, because socialism does not work. Okay, so let's start with the first thing. The supply. Right? Building an apartment complex requires millions of dollars in loans, which take decades to pay off. If a city freezes the rent, investors and developers immediately take their money to a different city where they can actually make a return on their investment. The problem with New York City is there's not enough housing. So there's no competition in the housing market. So there is nothing that can incentivize rent prices dropping. I live in California. I live in Long Beach, California. We are currently building maybe about 5 or 6 humongous apartment buildings downtown. And last year we built over the last couple of years, we built about a dozen high density housing units downtown, and rent is dropping. A 2-bedroom apartment was close to $3,000. It was actually over $3,000 a month. Now a 2-bedroom apartment has dropped down to around between $2,600 and $2,800 a month. The more housing you build, the lower the rent goes, or at least it stabilizes and stays at the same level for a long time. That is competition. The nature of business is to find a way to charge less than your competitor so you can attract all the business, right? Write that down. Now, if you put a 2-year rent freeze in effect, do you think investors are going to say, hey, let's go build over there where we can move people in at a certain rent, but for 2 years, we're going to be barred from raising the rent no matter what the market, how the market changes, how the market evolves, or how supply and demand fluctuates. No one's going to do that. No one's going to put themselves in a situation where they can't adjust the cost according to the laws of supply and demand. So you kill new building projects, you kill new building investment in New York City for 2 years minimum. But something tells me that there's going to be another rent freeze after this rent freeze. And there's going to be a subsequent rent freeze every time Zohran Mamdani comes up for re-election. Because this is how he got in office, promising people things that will ultimately destroy other people's lives, which will ultimately drive those people out of the city of New York. And you know who's going to have to foot the bill, right? Okay, so there's no construction, no cranes building buildings, and all new housing stops, right? There was a situation years ago that was very similar to this situation in St. Paul, Minnesota, where they did a rent freeze. During the rent freeze, building permits plummeted by 80%. No one wanted to build anything because St. Paul, Minnesota have voted in a strict rent cap. You could not charge more than this for rent. And the landlords and the investors just said, look, we're selling our buildings and we're going to build somewhere else. See, these people with their money and their capital and their jobs, the jobs that are created by this money, they can take that money anywhere in the world and pretty much get the same outcome. The guy who was going to build in New York can go build in LA. The guy who was going to build in LA could go build in Chicago. The guy who was going to build in Chicago can go build in Atlanta or Jackson, Mississippi, or New Orleans, Louisiana. Or it's just a ton of places where they can go. Phoenix, Arizona. So you may be able to control the landlords who already invested there. But the only thing that keeps a city like New York growing is new investment. It's like the life's blood. You got to always be bringing in. It's like a furnace back in the day where you had to constantly shovel coal into it to keep it burning. That's what a big city is. It's like an animal. It has to be fed. And the minute you cut, it's like you have an animal that's small and you cut the rations. You say, we can only feed them 2 cups of food a day. Well, as the animal gets bigger, the 2 cups of food is not going to be enough to sustain the animal, right? So the animal's going to get sick. It's going to be malnourished. It's going to be weak. And it's not going to be able to perform the way it was intended. That's the same thing like a city, right? This is the thing. They're going to freeze the rent. That's going to kill a bunch of revenue, right? But then they're going to raise the taxes on other people to make up for all of the money and revenue that is lost due to lack of investment. So we're taking money out the landlord's pocket. No one wants to build, so we're taking money out of the city's pocket as a whole, every member of the city. So then we're going to take money out of your pocket and then give you additional taxes to make up for our horrible policies that we put in. This is absolutely idiotic, and I don't really understand why people in New York can't see this. Like, if you are that hard up to pay rent in New York, you need to move out of that city because it ain't the city for you. There's a lot of places you can move. Upstate New York, there's families who get houses upstate New York, catch the train into the city. That's the point of a big economic hub. Everybody ain't supposed to be able to live inside of the city. The people who are willing to do what it takes to make that money so that they can afford that rent, those are the people who deserve to be there. Okay? Next thing, number 2. And I might put these in a little note at the bottom. So give me a second, bear with me. Number 2, slumlord generation. Right? Slumlord generation. Basically, if you don't allow the landlords to raise the rent, they're not able to make up for the rising cost of maintaining the building. Things that look cheap to you, they're very expensive to a landlord. You might look at a dishwasher. You might say, this dishwasher is old and broke. It don't work. Your landlord is not looking at that one dishwasher. He's looking at 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 dishwashers, because if yours has been in there since the building was built, everyone else's has been in there since the building was built. And now he's thinking pretty soon everyone's dishwasher is going to go out and I'm going to have to replace everybody's dishwasher. So what you look at as, oh, that's nothing, that's a $250 dishwasher. Well, times that by 40 or 50 or by however many units he has in the apartment, right? So if he's not able to slightly raise the rent to where he can, get a return on his investment for keeping the apartment up, keeping it modernized, right? A lot of people have moved from carpet. Now they have tile, right? They have the wood, the fake wood paneling, right? Yeah, the landlord wants to do all that for you. But here's the problem. If he can't raise the rent and adjust the rent to make up for the expense to incentivize doing it, he simply won't do it. And you'll be living in a building that looks like the year that it was built. So if the building was built in the 70s, the inside going to be looking like the 70s because the landlord just cannot improve the building. He cannot modernize the apartments without the ability to raise the rent. Now, I know the person renting is going to say, well, I've been living here this long. He's been collecting rent all this time. You're right. He has been collecting rent all this time. But he's also been dealing with the drama that comes with being a landlord. People squatting, people living in the apartment not paying rent, ignoring eviction notice, 3-day notice, 30-day notice, living rent-free, people destroying apartments, right? The plumbing, the heating, all these things don't last forever. They have to be repaired. You know, I have a house, bro. When the plumbing was bad in the house, yo, it was like $10,000 to fix that. So I can only imagine how much it is for the plumbing on a big ass building. And the cost of everything goes up. The plumber today in 2026 doesn't charge the same thing he charged in 1975. That's inflation. And when inflation rises for you, inflation rises for the landlord who owns the building you live in. So to handicap him is exactly the same thing as if they told you, look, man, we're going to freeze your wages at this amount and you won't be able to get a raise for 2 or 3 years. But the price of everything is still going up. Do you notice that city workers, government workers, state workers, do you notice that their pay always goes up with the cost of living? Because the cost of living is always going up. So how do you freeze someone's ability to adjust their earnings according to the cost of living? You're literally creating a slumlord. When you freeze the rent, you basically freeze the maintenance budget. The building literally rots from the inside out. And then you'll be complaining about that. But here's the crazy thing. You won't move because you don't want to give up that frozen rent. You won't move because you don't want someone else to move in and get something that you were benefiting from. And then what happens after that? Then Mamdani and his goons come in. They say, you're not keeping the building up to par. They seize the building. They take it from the landlord. And then the building becomes the projects. Nothing ever improves. The city government just takes over ownership, or one of their stooges takes over ownership. Now you literally help the city steal someone's property by helping the city handicap them from being able to fix the property, which then in turn causes them to violate maintenance regulations, right? And now you are party to city government sponsored theft of people's property. I really feel bad for the people who own houses, just single family units, and they're renting that out. I know the city's going to be seizing that like crazy, right? So let's get to this next one. I'm going to just write them out to help people track what we're talking about. So the next one is what I like to call the golden handcuffs, right? Why did I do that? The golden handcuffs, number 3. Okay, so people inside the apartment, and I alluded to this previously, the people who live inside of a rent-frozen apartment, basically they'll never leave. Why would they leave a unit where they're getting cheap rent? Why would they go to pay for a 2-bedroom, the same price that they're getting for a 3-bedroom inside of this building that's falling apart? You basically make yourself a captive inside of that apartment unit. You can't leave. You don't want to go anywhere because everything else around you is going to be growing more expensive. And there's nothing around you available because no one wants to move because they have cheap rent, right? This is one of the many criticisms I have against Section 8 and what is Section 8 and housing, right? These little affordable housing programs by the government. They basically kill people's incentive to do better because people know if I start making more money, legally, or making more taxable income, well, my rent's going to go up. So people become professional swindlers or failures. They make all their money under the table. Every chick on Section 8 is doing hair or selling ass or working at the strip club under the table or something like that because they cannot make taxable income. Because if they do, it has to be reported and Section 8 will raise their rent. So these people who have this frozen rent, they're basically prisoners. A single person in a 3-bedroom apartment will not downsize because a smaller, non-regulated apartment will cost more. So when that old lady's kids leave home and move out and move off to college, she has no incentive to leave that 3-bedroom for a 1-bedroom because you've kept the price frozen in time. Whereas when the kids are gone, she's like, look, I can pay cheaper rent by moving to a smaller apartment. No, she's actually going to pay cheaper rent by staying where she is. What does this do? This locks out people who are looking for housing. This locks out the family that has 2 new babies or 3 small children who really need a 3-bedroom. Because old Mrs. Murdy is sitting up in her 3-bedroom and absolutely will not move out because the price of the rent is just too good. You're really hurting. You got immigrants and transplants, people coming into the city for job opportunities, all that. They have nowhere to live now because everyone's sitting on this cheap rent. No one wants to go anywhere. So what do companies do? They say, we can't open up nothing in New York City because our workforce has nowhere to live. So they choose a different city to open up in, which ultimately does what? It hurts New York's economy overall, right? It literally turns housing into a game of musical chairs, but nobody ever stands up to let someone else have a chance at sitting down. So y'all just all sitting. Y'all all just squatting. This is like, these things are inarguable. There's no argument against these things. That is why people like Zohran Mamdani, they avoid these conversations because they have no answer for this. All they know is that if they keep promising people that they'll do stuff like this and they actually do it like they're just checking a box, they know people, out of the desire to get things for free and to get things for cheap, right? They'll continue to vote for these people. It don't matter how much money somebody make. Unless someone in America is a multimillionaire, they will always feel like they're broke. There's people who have $10,000 in their bank account and say, man, I'm broke as hell. There's people making $200,000 a year who are like, I can't afford to pay $3,000 a month for rent. They can't afford it. But they've built up a lifestyle most of the time where every single penny they earn is spent most times before they actually make it. So they're looking like, hey, bro, I'm just as broke as you. I have a friend, he makes like $150,000 a year. That guy's hitting me up every damn month for 20 or 40 bucks. Can you loan me 20? Can you loan me 40? In his mind, he's broke because the expenses he has, no matter how unnecessary they are necessary to him. You think if that guy finds an apartment with super cheap rent, he's going to move so you can have a place to live with your family? Of course not. This is what people don't understand. Nobody wants to leave. Nobody wants to go anywhere. Everyone feels like they're broke. Everyone feels like they're living paycheck to paycheck. People by nature are risk averse. So if you mitigate the risk, right? If you eliminate it, right? You think they're going to go just randomly decide to take a risk? Very few people are willing to do that. That's why everyone doesn't own a business. All right, so the next one is, this is going to be like gentrification on steroids. You hear a lot of people of color talking about gentrification. Oh man, they gentrified this building. The white folks moved in, and we used to be able to hang out on the stoop. Now little Becky is out here walking her poodle at 2:00 in the morning. I see white folks jogging by. That's how I knew the neighborhood was done. That's how I knew the hood was over, right? Well, what brings in gentrification? Gentrification is caused by when they take apartments and they turn them into condos. Have you ever went and looked at some apartment listings? I do that from time to time just because I feel like it. And I say, damn, that place that used to be nothing but a little raggedy ass 2-bedroom apartment when I was younger. Now they have that thing listed on Zillow as a condo that is for sale. That's what brings in gentrification. People who want to own, they don't want to rent per se, right? So they can have an asset. What's stopping the landlord from saying, look, okay, I can't raise the rent, but what I can do is evict everybody, ask everyone to leave, because the landlord has a right to ask you to move out of his apartment whenever he wants to, right? They might make him pay you to move out, whatever, but if he go get a $300,000 loan, he could pay every last one of y'all, and y'all got to go. And then he, instead of renting, he sells the apartment unit as a condo, starts a homeowners association, charges $300 or $400, even some of these places $500 for HOA fees, right? And he gets all his money up front. He gonna get all his money immediately that he would have had to wait decades to collect from you, collecting rent. With none of the muss and fuss, you're responsible for fixing all your own crap, right? You don't pay your bills, that's the bank's problem. They come take the shit from you. He ain't got to worry about nothing. Nothing stops that. So all you're doing when you're talking about freezing the rent, all you're doing is accelerating gentrification. But nobody thought about that. These are the conversations that Zohran Mamdani doesn't even want to have. Any Republican who got on stage to debate Zohran Mamdani would absolutely eviscerate him. But what's the problem? You guys won't even give a Republican with sense a chance to run against these people because you will say, blue no matter who. So the socialists and the communists know all we got to do is pretend to be Democrats because they're not Democrats. They're just socialists. But as long as they throw Democrat in front of socialist, you will vote for them. And then they will implement the policies that will destroy your lives and eventually force you out of the city totally. And you'll be looking stupid. But like most liberals, you will continue to have the same ignorant liberal beliefs, and you will take those beliefs and your voting identity to the next city to destroy that city. That's the way it goes. If owning a property becomes a financial loss due to a freeze, landlords will find loopholes. These people are businessmen. They know how to deal with problems. They will find a loophole. They'll sell. They'll evict the tenants, convert the apartment into luxury condos, and sell them off to wealthy buyers. Rent freezes actually shrink the total number of available rentals. This is a proven fact. This is exactly what happened in Argentina. Argentina was a socialist country up until recently. And they did rent control and rent freezes in cities all over the country. Within like 2 years, the homeless population skyrocketed. The landlord said, bump that. We will turn these into Airbnbs. We will sell these as condos. We will sell the whole damn building to somebody who wants to turn the building into office space. Or somebody who will turn this building into a hotel. They have a lot of options, guys. They have a lot of options. And usually the business interests have more leverage in a city than the public, than the just regular everyday civilian interests, because they have money to put behind the things they want. And at the end of the day, these politicians are greedy as hell, right? A policy meant to protect poor renters ultimately ends up turning their apartment into luxury condos for rich people. Ain't that funny how socialism always seems to make the poor poorer and more disadvantaged, but it also seems to make the rich richer. See, socialism is about the public taking control of the means of production. But because you live in the United States, while you'll be able to give the owners of the means of production a hard time, you will never be able to just take. You will never be able to just take away, the means. You will never be able to just take the means of production away from them. It doesn't work like that. Okay? Are y'all following me? Give me a 1 in the comments if you're following me and if you like what you hear. Guys, we are in here. It is late night. We're chilling. We're doing a little bit of heavy lifting, but it's a Friday night and we ain't got no money to party. So we just go out here and whoop up on these socialists, piss them off. We're going to hit the like button. We're going to subscribe to the channel. We're going to share this with our socialist, liberal, blue-haired friend. They probably won't watch it, but at least they'll know that it's out here. And if you are in a position to do so, please help me reach my goal, 5 super chats of $5 or more before the end of the show. And you can see the goal pinned to the top. Also, we have a question in the comments. Do you believe socialism will save New York City or the United States of America? Do you think socialism will work? You guys can start answering that question in the comments right now. That's an interactive chat where I want to see the answer to those questions, right? So now the next one is, the next reason it won't work, the shadow market. Y'all know what the shadow market is, right? Put a 1 in the comments if you know what a shadow market is. See, these are all the variables. These are all the possibilities y'all don't like to talk about. Go to a third world country. You will learn about the shadow market very quickly, right? What is the shadow market? Okay, when the legal price of an apartment is kept low artificially, meaning the government has manipulated the situation to keep that apartment price low, demand explodes. Everyone's looking for an apartment because there ain't enough apartments for everyone to have one. So since landlords have hundreds of people fighting for one unit, corruption comes in. Hi, I'm corruption, right? A black market forms. Landlords start finding different creative ways to get money out of you because you have to pay because there's someone else willing to pay extra, ridiculous fees, nonsensical fees to get that same apartment. When you talk about Argentina, when you talk about these other countries where the government tried to manipulate the housing market and cap the rent, these dudes started making things up like key fees. Yeah. The rent is only $350 a month, but then there's a key fee of $500 a month. Well, you can't charge more for rent. That's not for rent. That's the key fee. Landlords could always just say, hey, I'm going to just start charging you a maintenance fee. Your rent is $2,000 and your maintenance fee is $1,000. Don't pay it. You got to move. Because there's someone else out there who will pay that $1,000 maintenance fee to live in this apartment. How's the city going to stop that? How is the city going to tell a landlord he can't charge a maintenance fee because the city has capped his rent and has totally handicapped him from being able to add a small fee to everyone's rent, which will then in turn be used for the maintenance of the building. Is Zohran Mamdani banning maintenance fees? Is Zohran Mamdani banning a key fee? See, these are all the things people don't listen to, don't think about. That dude could say, hey, there's a fee for building inspections every month because we got to keep the building inspected so the city don't come and find something wrong and then take my building away. So I'm going to hire my son to be the building inspector, my personal building inspector. And oh, look, what I charge you for the building inspection fee is going to add up to exactly what I would have charged to raise your rent. Or it might be a bit more. This is an actual Fed stream. They can look at this guy. Guy cannot argue the point. I'm telling you exactly what's happening. This got nothing to do with the feds. This has nothing to do with the feds. This has to do with business. You know what business is? People do it every day. Is the dude at Starbucks charge you $7 for a latte? Is he a Fed? No. See, that's the problem. You look at landlords like they're people running a charity, but they're actually people running a business. And just like a business can raise the cost or lower the cost according to the laws of supply and demand, a landlord can do the same thing. And as supply drops and demand increases, guess what? Prices go up. Now, if supply increases and demand decreases, prices go down. But when you freeze the rent, no one leaves. So that sucks up all the supply, but it does nothing to dissipate the demand. So guess what's going to happen? Prices going to go up. You ain't got to be a Fed to know that. You're just a dumbass, right? When you make increasing prices illegal, that's when bribes start. That's when pay to play starts, right? That's when people start figuring out creative ways to get the same money to keep their bottom line stable. And this is exactly what's going to happen in New York City. Oh, and if you report me, you got to go. They can't keep me from evicting you. Here goes your little $2,000, $3,000 to move. You're out of here. You're out of here. See, the citizens, these citizens of New York actually believe they're giving themselves more freedom. They're actually stripping themselves of freedom because they're going against the laws of the free market. And when you do that, it's a recipe for disaster. It's like when you go to Africa, right? I go to Africa all the time, right? When you go in a store in Africa, there's no price on the products. You know what that means? Based on your accent, based on whether you're from there or not, the person who runs the store could raise the price on you and you would never know, right? That's why in free market capitalism, we created a custom of placing the prices on the product. So the person who owns the store can ensure you that, hey, I'm not charging you one price and then charging the next person who comes in another price. See, that's the free market at work. Because competition made that the case. And so now when you go to Africa, one guy might not have no prices on his product, but the guy across the street got the prices on there. And people say, I know I'm always going to get a fair price over here because the price is on the product before I walked in the door. I'm not getting swindled. I'm not having to barter, right? So then the guy across the street say, why ain't nobody coming here to buy? Well, because they want to know they're getting the same price every time. They don't want to haggle with you. They want to go in, see the price, and decide to pay it. So you know what he does? He starts putting the price on his products. That's what competition does. It keeps people honest. And overall, it benefits the customer. But when you remove all competition, when you let the city fudge the numbers and fudge the rules, you're taking your own power away. You're taking away the ability for you to protest with your feet. So here's the next one, number 6. And don't forget, we're gonna destroy these grocery stores too. These bullshit grocery stores that Zohran Mamdani is talking about. Those are out of here as well. Because bro's on some BS with that too. But this is what happens when you have people who don't learn. Why do you think they don't want to teach you history? Why do you think most of the kids in the school can't tell you who the 16th president was or the second president? Why do you think your kids go to school but learn no history? Because if you learn from the mistakes of the past, you won't repeat them. But these people, do you think at school they teach you about World War II and socialism, fascism versus capitalism? They don't teach our kids that stuff. Why would they? Because they're trying to sell our kids socialism right now. They don't want our kids to know that under every socialist regime, millions upon millions of people died of famine and starvation. Because if they do, they can't get your kid excited about Zohran Mamdani. Right? Nah, hey, what does this guy say? You don't debate facts. You ignore folks that drop that. Nah, if people have facts, right, I invite them to come up. I got time. We ain't going nowhere. Here you go. The StreamYard link is in the chat. You can click this link and come up with the facts. And then we can have like a 5 to 10 minute debate about your facts versus my facts, but you're going to lose. That's why you guys never come up. I invite people up every show. You guys never come up because you know you don't have facts. You have very passion-driven opinions, but what I'm presenting is facts, because this is what happened when other countries tried to implement this stuff, rent control, rent freezes, rent caps, and all this stuff. And that's why people work their ass off to get out of those countries and come to America, because people really don't need handouts. People just need a stable environment in which they can work and do business, and they can find their own way up the ladder. We just have a lot of lazy, entitled people in America who feel like they shouldn't have to work for nothing. A lot of people who was on welfare their whole life, so they're very comfortable sitting at home in front of the TV all damn day, eating and shit. Let's go to the next one. So when you implement the rent freezes, you're shifting the tax burden to the homeowner, right? Think about this. Or the homeowner or the building owner, right? So once you freeze the rent, right, the landlord can only pay a certain amount of taxes for a multifamily unit. What you're going to do then is kill revenue, because his taxes are based on the revenue that he's bringing in. So if you freeze his revenue, you essentially freeze his tax tax responsibility, right? You freeze his taxable income. So now he's not able to give you as much money in taxes as he would be able to give you if he was allowed to raise the rent, according to, the cost of living. So then you still have to pay for all these budgets that you voted into law at the beginning of the year. So where do you get that money from? You shift the burden onto the homeowners. And what do? They raise their property tax. That's what always happens. Every Democrat socialist, soon as they got elected mayor of a major city, the first thing they did was raise property taxes. Zohran Mamdani did it. Brandon Johnson did it. Katie Wilson did it. Every single Democrat socialist, soon as they become mayor, they raise property taxes. And they don't raise them on the rich. They raise them on the middle class. Check this out. Cities fund schools and roads through property taxes. When an apartment building's income is frozen, the building loses market value, meaning the taxes for that building, the yearly taxes for that building, goes down. If your building was worth $1 million, once the rent is frozen, the value of your building drops down to like 900,000, 800,000, 700,000, right? Well, your property taxes are based on the assessed value of that property, right? So if your value goes down because rent freeze, no one will pay $1 million for that because they won't even be able to make a real return on investment from it, right? Your tax burden goes down. So that means less tax revenue the city is able to collect from you. So they have to find a way to replace that revenue. Well, you know who has a building that's retaining its property value? The homeowner, the person who owns the home that they live in with their family. And the city starts hiking up their taxes, right? To make up the difference, the city is forced to violently jack up the property taxes on regular, average, middle-class homeowners and families, right? Recent federal data shows that when an apartment's value drops due to rent control, everyday homeowners get stuck paying thousands more in property taxes to cover the gap. Now, the guy who just said, I don't look at facts and I ignore the facts, where is he at to explain this? Where is he at to tell us why me as a homeowner, why I should pay more in property taxes so Bonquisha and old Miss Murdy can get frozen rent when they made the decision to rent for their whole life and I made the decision to buy. And I'm buying so I could have more control over the cost of my housing from year to year and eventually own my home. But while I'm paying my mortgage, thinking I'm good, I'm making an investment, this is an asset that's increasing in value. Well, really, the value of the asset is being stolen from me through draconian property tax hikes that the city is using, they're implementing, right, to pay for their horrible decision making, for their horrible policies. They're charging me to bribe the liberal voter into voting for them in return for free stuff. Someone always has to pay. And just because you're not the one paying, you feel like it doesn't matter. But do you know how many people want to have a home one day? And then you got people who didn't even graduate from the 3rd grade. Just tax the rich. The rich leave, dum-dum. The rich don't have to stay in New York. They can move to Florida. Do you know, can anyone tell me, I got another quiz for y'all. Does anyone know where the highest concentration of billionaires in America live? Per capita? Does anyone know where the highest concentration per capita of billionaires lives in America? I'll wait. Y'all tell me. I'll wait. Tell me, y'all. Where do all the billionaires live? Nope. Somebody said the South. Nope. Silicon Valley. Nope. Miami. Nope. I'll wait. I'll wait. Let's see. Florida, nope. Nope. Texas, nope. Georgia, nope. New York, Florida, nope. Nope. Texas, California, nope. Long Beach, no. Rose Garden, nope. Hawaii, Connecticut, nope. See, people don't even know. You could just tax the rich. The rich will move on you. They will move to where all the other rich people live. The highest concentration of billionaires per capita in the United States is in a little town called Jackson Hole, Wyoming. This is where all the billionaires go. They move here, right? They move here to avoid paying astronomical taxes in these liberal states. Look, Teton County, home to Jackson Hole, has the highest concentration of billionaires in the United States. Wyoming boasts the most billionaires per capita of any state, with approximately 3.47 to 10.9 billionaires per million people, depending on the specific data and source and year. Key factors driving this wealth concentration: tax advantages. Soon as you raise their taxes, they might love New York. They might love the nightlife. They might love going to this 5-star restaurant that they like a lot. But as soon as you start raising these people's taxes, you know what these people do? They leave. They say, I'm going to go where I don't have to worry about anybody trying to rob me. Because rich people feel like taxation is robbery. And it is robbery because you're taxed 1 million times a day, and yet you still got to pay more taxes. Every time you buy something, they tax you, sales tax. Then you get paid income tax, right? Federal. Then you got to pay state tax, right? Then you do your car registration. There's a tax on that. They tax you multiple times. They hit you 100 different times, like a prostitute. And rich people, when they get hit, it hurt. It's a bigger hit. It looks bigger to them than when you get hit for 10 cents on the dollar. So they say, screw this. I'm going to go where there's no tax. Do you know why Jeff Bezos opened Amazon in Seattle? Do you know why he did Amazon in Seattle, Washington? Because at that time, Seattle, Washington had no income tax. He said, I don't want my income taxed. I want to keep my income. So he opened the largest business in the world in a city that didn't have income tax. They recently implemented a income tax under their new Democrat socialist mayor, and Jeff Bezos is out of there. Jeff Bezos is out of there. He left Seattle, Washington, and moved across the river to Bellevue, Washington, where they still don't have an income tax. See, this is what I'm telling y'all. The rich people just move. So tax the rich is not a working strategy. I got you, LA Bear, real quick. Let me get this right here. Thank you, my brother Terrence Sinclair, for the $5 holler, helping us reach our goal. I'm gonna leave it up there, and then I'm gonna get the $2 holler up at the top. Okay, so they moved there for tax advantages, natural beauty, privacy, ain't no poor people around. Christy Walton, Joe Ricketts. Christy Walton is the Walmart lady. Joe Ricketts is the TD Ameritrade founder. John Mars, the owner of the Mars Candy and Pet Food Company. These are the rich folks. So tax the rich. Jeff Bezos could move right over there. Elon Musk could move right over there. Right? So who you going to tax once they leave you? Let's tax the rich. Kathy Hochul, the governor of New York, is already like, yo, we need to go down to Florida and get our rich people back. Because when we started with the shenanigans, they left. That's why this whole tax the rich, it's the stupidest idea that people keep repeating. And I'm just like, dude, are you guys even like paying attention to what's going on in the world? Yo, LA Bear, what up, my brother?
What they do, my brother. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm over here breaking down this whole stupidity of this rent freeze. And then we're going to break down the stupidity of the government-run grocery stores.
Now, let me ask you this question. Why do you believe that the rent freeze is stupid, in your opinion?
I just explained it. I'm on point number 6, but I'm going to 10.
So, I've been listening to you, and you brought up Jackson Hole, right? If you look in the comments, I was the only person to get that right, right?
Okay.
And back when what's the guy from Star Wars? Harrison Ford. Back when Harrison Ford and all of them created Jackson Hole as a tax haven, right?
Right.
Places like Delaware, Connecticut, Wyoming, these are just tax havens for the rich. They do not actually move. If you go to Jackson Hole, it's not like they have a thriving community of people living there. They have all these big houses, these big, sprawling palatial estates, and there's no one there, right? Like, unlike most of us in this chat, I've actually been in Jackson Hole. There aren't any people there, right? They use it as a tax haven. So this idea that, oh, well, if you tax the rich, well, they'll just move. No, they won't. What they will do is claim residence somewhere else to try to avoid paying taxes.
And what
they
does that
won't
do?
actually move.
Yeah, but they're going to claim residence, and they're not going to try. They're going to avoid paying taxes.
Sure, but so that doesn't mean that we are stupid for trying to collect taxes.
That means that you are stupid for trying to raise taxes in an abusive manner.
Let me ask you a question. Okay, so you say
you're asking a lot of damn questions, which you already know the answer to.
So hold on, you say it's abusive, right?
It is 100%.
So let me ask you this: why do you think the rich owe a greater tax burden?
I think the rich already pay a greater tax burden than the average poor person or middle class. The rich are already paying like 97% of all the taxes.
No, they don't. Well, okay.
All right.
No. Wait. Their tax contribution makes up 97% or 90-something% of most of the taxes collected, but they're not paying their fair share.
Listen, man, they're not only paying 97% of the taxes, they're also creating jobs, starting companies that then help other companies start. Like, bro,
so
you're not going to get around this. You can't get all this money from somebody and then be like, yeah, we're going to hit you up for a little bit more every couple of years. You can't do that.
Says who?
Says the laws of capitalism.
But that's not true. Before Ronald Reagan, the tax burden on the wealthiest 1% was 90%.
No, it was only 90% for 10 years.
Okay, but it was 90. But it was
only 90% for 10 years.
It doesn't matter if it was 90% for 10 days.
Yes, it does, because they eventually changed it. Why?
At some point in our history, we tax the wealthiest people 90%.
Bro, you can't say I was a bullfighter for 3 years and be like, yeah, but that means you should become a bullfighter. No, there's a reason you stopped being a bullfighter. You said this shit is dangerous.
Okay, did the U.S. government tax people more prior to the administration of Ronald Reagan?
For 10 years.
Okay, and 90% for 10 years is a lot of money. If we would have taxed Elon Musk 90% for 10 years, we would have made a ton of money.
Yeah, but guess what? You would have lost a ton of money, actually.
Why?
See, what you're doing is called an argument. Is called a reduction to the absurd, where you throw out a statement that on the surface seems to make sense, but if we break down that statement,
I'm telling you historical facts.
Listen. What I'm saying is, again, reduction to the absurd. It seems like it makes sense on the surface, but if we break it down, it's absolutely ignorant. Because here's the thing: let's tax Elon Musk at 90% for 10 years. How many people get laid off at SpaceX?
Hello?
Okay. Yeah, hello, my ass. How many people does he have to fire from SpaceX if you tax him at 90%?
Well, how many people work for SpaceX?
Well, I don't freaking know. Let's go to Jeff Bezos. Let's tax Jeff. No, these are all billionaires. This is my show. This is my show.
Slow down.
This is my show.
Down.
Barrett, don't start.
You just said if we tax SpaceX.
If we listen, I know what I said. You don't have to repeat to me.
How many people work for SpaceX?
If we tax Jeff Bezos at 90%, how many Amazon workers do you have to lay off?
If we personally tax Jeff Bezos at 90%,
We could
none.
ask AI. We don't
None,
gotta wait
none.
for you to give none.
You're,
My
you're
ass.
saying taxing Jeff Bezos versus taxing Amazon.
Either
Those
one.
are two different things. No, those
No,
are two different
bro.
things. Those are two different things.
Dude, are you
Taxing Jeff
you're really
Bezos,
gonna do this? You're
the
really gonna
private
do this?
citizen,
You're really
of course
gonna
we'll
do
do
this? You know
Well,
good and damn well. You know good and damn well these billionaires do not take an income. They tie everything they spend into their company.
Why?
You know
why
they
are
do that.
Why are they allowed to do that?
Doesn't matter why. That's what they do.
Because of loopholes in the tax system.
No, that's not no loophole.
It is a loophole.
No, if you own the company and work for the company, companies have a right to pay for things for their employees as incentives.
The reason why they're able to dodge
You got 10 seconds to make a real argument because you're getting embarrassed right now.
No, I'm not. The reason they're able to dodge tax loophole because they take out loans against their stock.
Whichever way, it doesn't matter.
But again,
It doesn't matter.
okay, let me ask you this question.
You're playing checkers.
Okay,
They don't
so
chess. 3D
let's-
chess.
Let's say I agree with you. I agree with you, right? We should not tax the wealthy, right? Now answer me this.
We
question.
already taxed the
Why
wealthy.
Okay, so let's say we don't tax them. Let's say the zero tax rate. We don't charge any of them anything. All these wealthy corporations, Tesla, Amazon, we don't tax them anything, right? Cool. So why does our money, our tax dollars, go to support their infrastructures?
No,
So, so
our
just
tax-
recently,
do
so
you
just
realize
recently-
that? Do you realize that when you say our tax dollars, you're actually talking about their tax dollars since they pay 97% of the taxes?
no, but we're saying that they shouldn't though. But we're saying
They already
shouldn't.
do. They
No,
already
but-
do.
Okay, but in your analogy, you're saying that they should not, right? So let's lessen their tax burden. Let's say, hey, they're job creators, they're all of this good stuff. So let's now answer me as to why we subsidize their businesses.
We don't subsidize their businesses.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
Okay,
So
what does the government use to subsidize their businesses?
So just recently with the Tesla, with Elon Musk and Tesla, the state of California, the federal government was giving tax rebates for you to go out and buy an electric car. Tesla benefited from those tax rebates.
Yes,
Right.
and Tesla's
Hold on, right.
owner paid the majority of the taxes that year that America collected.
So again, right?
That's his own money.
Okay, so again, right? You're saying that they shouldn't do that. You're saying
They're
that
already
they
doing
should-
that.
Okay, so but you're saying they shouldn't do it.
Barrett,
That
you
is-
lost.
No, you're saying that somehow it's a burden upon them in order for them to pay that high tax burden. What I'm saying to you is that we give incentives that private businesses benefit from. Amazon is able to use the United States Postal Service to deliver products to their customers. Why are they able to do that?
Why not? They pay.
Right? We have
Wait,
customs
whoa.
that
Their tax
I-
money that they pay significantly more than you do funds the postal service.
again.
So
what
why
I'm-
wouldn't they be able to use it? I bet you that is exactly the argument that Amazon used when they asked the United States to allow them to use the postal service to deliver their packages.
So you're making my argument. What I'm saying is that these companies the government, so they have to pay into the government. So need to tax them. That's you're making my point for me, right?
Look.
When I try to go buy a bunch
Look,
of
if you went
bootleg Nikes and bring them to this country,
Your argument
Customs
doesn't make
and
any
border
sense.
agents are going to stop me from bringing Nikes into this country. Why? Why does our government protect Nike?
You're
as a
hurting
company?
my views. You're hurting my views because your argument is so bad.
What does that have to do with your views?
People are dropping off
We-
because what you're saying is making no sense.
Oh, because you don't understand business.
No, this is a
We
new
as a-
audience. This is an intelligent audience, not like the old audience. So they understand that what you're saying. You're talking in circles. Jeff Bezos' personal income from Amazon is only $1 million. Go ahead and
Okay.
tax him up the yin yang. So if he
No.
makes $1 million, you're going to take 900,000 of that.
No, that's not what we would do.
That's
Right?
exactly what
Jeff-
you would do if you tax
no.
his personal income.
No, Jeff Bezos' personal income is only $1 million. What's
Right.
his capital? What's his capital gains?
I don't know, but
Do
we
you
got to
even
get
know
back
what
to the
capital
show.
gains is?
Yes,
Do you
I
even
do.
know what capital gains
yes,
is?
I do. Yes, I do.
What's the
We
capital
gotta get
gains
back.
rate?
I'm not answering any questions for you because you didn't answer any of my questions.
What questions did you have for me?
A bunch that you just didn't even answer.
No, you don't know what capital gains rates are, and that's
All
what
right.
he's avoiding paying.
All right.
Jeff
No,
Bezos is not paying.
capital gains rates are they would be measured against the amount of stock that he owns in the company. Okay.
So the
Did
money
I-
he
did I
makes
pass
by-
your- did I
by being
pass
a
your test?
Stakeholder.
Did I pass your test?
Okay, but what's that rate? So what's that rate?
Shut
what
up.
should he pay?
I don't know. I don't know.
50, so it's 15%.
It
So
doesn't.
if you
Come
look
on,
at
bro.
all the stock that he owns, in Amazon, he should pay 15% of the increase of that stock. in
But
capital
people
gains.
are very.
That's what he's not paying.
People are very. They're very. They're against paying capital gains tax because capital gains fluctuate every year. No one really knows. It's like money you haven't even earned yet. How you gonna tax somebody based on money they haven't even earned yet?
They are earning the money though.
No, they're not, because
They're
you don't
able
know.
to-
You don't know how the price of the stock is going to go up or down. They don't earn the money until they sell the stock. How you going to tax them before they sell it?
No.
Yeah.
No. The gains aren't realized until they sell.
Yes,
the
they
stock.
haven't been realized. That I just said that money
but
they
the gains
haven't made yet.
But the gains are still the gains.
Barrett,
if-
you're arguing. You're
If
arguing
you buy,
with
if
a
you
capitalist.
buy 1,000, if you
Barrett,
buy
you are
$1,000,
arguing with a capitalist
You're not a
about.
capital.
Yes,
You're
I
not a
am.
capitalist.
You're
not a
arguing
capitalist.
with a capitalist about capital gains tax. I'm never going to agree with you on that.
How much stock do you own?
I got to check my portfolio right now. I couldn't tell you to the number, but about $12,000. I mean, or if I measure my 401k,
Okay,
if I measure my 401k, probably like close to like
they're able to take loans out against
600,000?
those gains. They're able to take loans out against those gains. So that means that
that's fine, Barrett. Nobody wants to hear about this. We got to get back to the show. We went from 500 to 183.
Okay.
All right.
So you're saying I account for that 400 that 400 drop off?
100%, dude. You got up here sounding retarded. But thank you for coming up.
All right, man.
Hey, look, man, we ain't gonna play with this dude. These dudes, I don't know who these. I didn't cook these dudes in a million debates next to Trump. Okay, so we got to get to number 7. That was a huge freaking little tangent we went off on. So number 7, guys, extreme discrimination by landlords. Why rent freezes don't work. Number 7, extreme discriminations by landlords. If a landlord is forced to charge the exact same low price to everyone, they lose the ability to use price to manage risk. Instead, they become hypersensitive or hyper-selective. They will only rent to people with a perfect 800 plus credit score, massive savings, and high-paying corporate jobs, which would completely lock out low-income or lower wage earning workers. See, when you can't adjust the cost of rent, you assume more risk personally. So you're willing to take less risk when it comes to the people that you rent to. See, because if I can only charge you $2,000 a month for an apartment, I need to make sure that I'm going to get that $2,000 a month on time every month. If I can only charge you $2,000 a month for an apartment, I can't rent to somebody who's going to pay the rent 1 month and then the next month going to be late and then going to skip the 3rd month and be like, let me get it back to you on the 4th month. I can't play those type of games with low income earners, right? So now I only want to bring in high income earners because Zohran Mamdani may be able to control how much I can charge for rent, but he can't control who I rent to. If I'm only able to charge a certain amount for this apartment, I want my money every month on time, or you have to go. And you know, landlords give people a lot of leeway. Because why? If things get too bad, if they take a risk and it blows up in their face, they can raise the rent a little bit on everybody and make up for the loss. You understand? See, that's how that works. So you're going to create a situation where landlords become even more discriminatory. Then what you going to do? Let's pass another memorandum that forces them to rent to anybody we say. Huh. All this going to get thrown out by the Supreme Court anyway. But this is why I tell you it's a reduction into absurdity. Because the more that you throw it out and it sounds good on the surface level, but when you start breaking it apart and really examining the elements, it becomes completely absurd. And even someone who doesn't even own property would agree like, yo, that don't make sense. A lot of times what I like to do is ask people who don't own shit, if you did own, would you think this was fair? If you did own, if you did open a business, would you think this is fair? And their answer is going to be no. That's why I'm telling you that no one in America is truly a socialist. No one in America is truly a socialist, bro. It could be a welfare queen. She is not a socialist because she still wants to keep. If she ever did have to work, she would want to keep more of what she earned than the government takes. And in socialism, the government takes more of what you earn than you keep. Understand that. Nobody in America wants to see their check and see, hey, the government took 70% of your check for universal health care or for housing affordability. Rent freezes don't help the poor. They actually give landlords an excuse to only rent to the ultra rich. They give landlords an excuse to only rent to the well-connected. And I promise you, let them freeze the rent and I'm looking for an apartment. You better damn well believe I'm going to the landlord like, yo, they only let you charge $2,000 for this. I give you $2,300 a month for it. I give you the $2,000 and I give you the $300 under the table. They're going to take it. Now, what does that do to help the person who can barely pay $2,000 a month find a place to live? It doesn't. So the more you screaming, no, tax the rich and let's freeze the rent. The more you scream that, the more you're setting yourself up for a very rude awakening. And that leads us to the next thing. The sublet scam, right? And this, and I know people who are doing this right now. The sublet scam is crazy, right? Do y'all know what the sublet scam is? Put a 1 in the comments if you understand what the sublet scam is. And I see you all gas, no brakes. Put a 1 in the comments if you know what the sublet scam is. So imagine somebody gets one of these rent frozen apartments that Mamdani has ordered, right? And they're like, look, I'm getting cheap rent. I've been in this apartment for like 5 years, but me and wifey, you know, being in this apartment 5 years with the low rent, we've had money. We've had time to save money. So now we can buy a house upstate, right? They're not going to move out of the rent controlled apartment. They're going to keep the rent controlled apartment in their name. And what they're going to do is they're going to find someone who's desperate and who really needs an apartment. And they're going to say, yo, the rent here is $2,000 a month, but it's capped. It's frozen. But I want you to give me $2,500 a month, right? And you could stay here. I make $500. The landlord get his $2,000 while me and wifey living upstate in a new house. That's the sublet scam. That always happens. I know a lady right now. She was on Section 8. She was living in North Long Beach in a rent controlled apartment. right? That's actually the crazy thing is the apartment is actually in one of her family members' name because she works. But she got the apartment in one of her poor family members' name. The rent on the apartment is like $15 a month because their family member has no income. She still live with the parents. That woman found a rich dude, married him, moved out of her $15 a month apartment, right? She is now renting that apartment. She's subletting that apartment to a friend of mine. She's charging him $1,000 a month. So he's getting a deal on it because the rent is only $15 a month. He's paying $1,000 a month to her. She pays the measly $15 a month. She pocket all the rest. That's $985 a month that she gets to pocket while she still keeps her job working for the state, still gets to drive around in her brand new Mercedes, still gets to get the money from her rich husband that she just married. And somebody who desperately needs that apartment for their family can't get it because some rich chick is running the sublet scam and holding the apartment, keeping the apartment like a placeholder. This is what happens. You guys can say, nobody's going to tax the rich. All that shit. This stuff is way more complicated than you want to believe. This stuff is way more complicated than people want to accept. Just like you think you're intelligent, when you think, let's tax the rich, there are people way more intelligent than you who quickly will figure out a way to manipulate your ignorance to come up and make a huge profit. Believe that. That's what the sublet scam is. Tenants who secure a rent frozen lease 10 years ago often realize that they can move away, keep the lease in their name, and illegally sublet the apartment to desperate newcomers for double the price. The actual landlord loses money. The new tenants are actually paying market rate for the unit, and a middleman is getting rich for doing absolutely nothing. Whatever you want to call it, it's a government-protected scalping ring for apartments. See, that's what socialism does. It creates a black market that undermines the economy, and that's why socialist economies always fail. Because people stop buying at the stores. People stop buying at the grocery stores and at the clothing stores. They say, screw this. I could buy at the little illegal night market in the alley off of 125th Street. 125th Street. And they go do that. And the city collapses because it's not able to take in the revenue it needs to maintain the infrastructure. Because everyone's buying on the black market. And guys, think about this. You live in America where you can just drive across state lines and get shit for way cheaper. People already are doing it in Chicago. They drive right over into Indiana and buy cigarettes and everything else because Chicago implemented a cigarette tax. You think people say, hey, I'm going to just go pay $20 for a pack of cigarettes? Hell no. It created a black market where people drive across the state line in Indiana, buy cartons and cartons and cartons of cigarettes, bring them back to Chicago, and sell the cigarettes for a little bit over market value, and they make money, and the liquor stores lose revenue. And then the city loses revenue because the liquor stores sell less, therefore they pay less taxes. All right, guys, we are powering through this. I'm feeling energized. I'm feeling energized. You know what? Maybe we need to disrupt this with another video to show you guys how ignorant these rent-freeze people really are. They're so happy.
A huge relief for millions of New York City residents living in rent-regulated apartments. No rent hike for the next year, or possibly two, depending on your lease. It is also another big win this week for Mayor Mamdani, who followed through on a major campaign promise.
Do you think any of these people that are hugging each other, crying, celebrating. Do you think any of these people went through these 10 points that I'm going through right now? Do you think any of them realize that they've just made their city more unlivable? Of course they don't. They're just happy that they could go shop and go on vacation a little bit more with the money they're going to save.
Eyewitness News reporter Zohran Mamdani'S was there for tonight's big vote.
The motion passes.
For the first time in its history, New York's Rent Guidelines Board is freezing rents for 2-year leases for the city's 1 million rent-regulated apartments. The board also freezing 1-year leases, something it has done only 3 times before.
0%.
The unprecedented 7-1 vote unleashing unbridled joy and relief from the tenants who packed the board vote tonight.
This is no longer just a city that is a playground for the rich. This is a city for the working people who make it run, and we are making it run for us. And I am so overjoyed that we're finally here after so much fighting, after years of struggling to figure out how we're going to make ends meet.
For years, landlords have run this city, and this is like a new era of tenant power. We have a rent-freeze mayor. Hundreds of people came out and testified, thousands online. Like, landlords' days are over. Tenants are in power now, and it feels amazing.
Landlords who say they are struggling with rising costs like fuel and insurance, though, lambasting the decision.
The whole process is such a farce. We're going to have to cut back. We'll have to lay off people. We'll have to lay off some of the supers. Only choice. It's a business. People don't get it. This is a business. It's not a choice that you think this is for free.
I'm freezing. Your rent.
Mayor Mamdani made it a signature issue in his campaign, then followed through on his pledge to appoint half a dozen members of the 9-member board.
Buildings with rent-stabilized apartments saw their revenue increase by more than 6% last year.
But while the outcome seemed like a foregone conclusion, it did not come without drama. This morning, Christina Smith, a board member appointed to represent landlords, abruptly resigned, claiming the mayor stacked the deck. The mayor, for his part, in a statement tonight, calling it a historic victory for tenants, adding, "This is the relief that working people across our city deserve." The mayor insists the board is independent and that members made up their own minds. Under the Adams administration, landlords received a 12% increase while their net operating incomes rose by 30%. In East Harlem, Zohran Mamdani'S, Channel 7, Eyewitness News.
See, so under Eric Adams, you know, they record all this stuff, that landlords' operating income increased by 30%. Eric Adams' administration only gave them the leeway to increase rent by 12%, right? So there was somewhat of a balance. You can increase rent 12% even though your operating cost is at 30%, right? People fudge numbers all day. We know that. But this guy says 0 rent increase, no matter what the operating cost may be, how much it may go up. And then the lady who represented the landlords on the board, she said this was bullcrap. She said there was never any real vote. I believe Mamdani replaced a bunch of the board members because I think he has a right to, he has the power to replace the board members, according to, what he sees fit. So she just resigned. This is bullshit. She knows it's not going to work. And she's like, I'm not going down with this dude. This dude is not taking me down with him. When things implode and these people, when the homelessness crisis of New York explodes, you just can't tell someone else what to do with their business. That's not America. That's not the American way. And that leads us into our next point. Number 9, intention versus reality. You end up helping the wrong people. Economic studies consistently show that the people who benefit the most from long-term rent freezes are older, wealthier residents who snagged good apartments decades ago, and they stayed there. Meanwhile, young people, legal immigrants, and growing families who are looking for a place are left out, completely stranded with nowhere to live. Like we said, these people will not leave. They are not giving up that good rent. They're not giving up that prime real estate right next to everything they like to do. They moved there in the 1980s, 1970s, and they've been renting for 20, 30, 40 years. This is a big thing in New York. There are many people who just never buy. It's more cost effective for them to continue to rent. And when you do rent freezes, all you're doing is incentivizing them to stay there even longer. Oh, hell yeah. My building is grandfathered in. Of course I'll stay here longer paying when I don't have to worry about a rent increase for 2 years. These older people might have said, you know what, we were going to move to another state for cheaper cost of living. Well, we don't got to do that now because we have the rent frozen in this apartment that we're living in. Why wouldn't they stay put? Right? So at the end of the day, there's one thing that this leads to that nobody can argue with. Rent freezes, rent caps, all this leads to one thing in a big city: urban decay. Urban decay is what you get for all this. If you look at the long-term history of cities that implemented aggressive rent freezes and rent caps like what Mamdani is doing, like in the mid-20th century New York, and European countries did this stuff too back in the mid-20th century. All it led to was housing shortages, crumbling infrastructure, abandoned buildings, and a city government that spent billions to fix the crisis that they created. There's a quote by a Swedish economist. Take out your pen and paper. The Swedish economist Assar Lindbeck said, next to bombing, rent control, in many cases, seems to be the most efficient technique so far known to destroy a city. Next to bombing, rent control seems in many cases to be the most efficient and effective technique so far known for destroying a city. And that's exactly what Zohran Mamdani is going to do. And he's going to destroy the city because he's powered, he's empowered by a bunch of people who can't see past their own complaints. They can't see past their own expenses, right? A lot of these people probably shouldn't even be living in New York City. So these people should be living over in Indiana or Wyoming or Montana or Minnesota or North Carolina or South Carolina. But they want to live in the big city. But they don't want to pay the cost. There are plenty of people who can afford to live in New York City. The problem is you got a bunch of people who can't afford to live there, who want to stay there, but aren't willing to do what it takes to be a resident of that place. That's just the way it is. Some people work harder than others. Some people go to school to get the degrees and stuff necessary to earn the high income that will allow them to stay there. Why is a ceiling being put? Why is a cap being put on the potential of the city of New York to placate a bunch of people who are just going to find something else to complain about? If you're already complaining about the rent being high right now, what does it matter if the rent is capped? The rent is still high. You're still going to complain, my rent's too high. And what I believe is a lot of these people are going to end up moving out of the city. That's what I believe. Get out of New York City, move upstate, catch the train into city to work, do whatever you got to do. But don't try to weaponize the government to against people who really are creating opportunities in the city. Let's go here. All gas, no brakes. Why don't these tax the rich advocates ever call for cutting wasteful spending or using tax dollars more efficiently? They already waste the money they have now. 100%. These people never say, you know what? Let's identify waste, fraud, and abuse. Let's get rid of that so we can lower the taxes that they're taking out of our checks. And that will help us pay rent. Remember when Donald Trump made the money that you pay for like auto loans or something like that tax deductible? or was one of those things. It was like the money you pay for auto loans or the taxes you pay for auto loans, something to that effect. He made it tax deductible. Why aren't we working with the president to pass laws that help us keep more money in our pockets? Like no tax on tips. What about this idea that Steve Hilton has? No tax on your first $100,000 of income. See, this is why I'm a conservative. Conservatives actually think of creative ways to reduce people's financial burdens that don't weaponize the government against people who make a little bit more money. And most millionaires and billionaires are okay with that. Yeah, man, they ain't barely paying shit anyway. Let them keep that little $200-$300 that they paying every paycheck in taxes. Because if that'll keep the government out of my pocket, I'm all for it. We don't even consider these things. Nah, let's go. Let's waste. Let's waste and then just go take some more money from the rich people. No, rich people want to know where their money's going. Sticks and Stones, LA. I'm wearing the Sticks and Stones shirt right now. Shout out to Sticks and Stones. I'm wearing the Sticks and Stones Miss Parker shirt. You know what I'm saying? Go check out Sticks and Stones website. Oh no, actually we can't do Sticks and Stones anymore. I'm tripping. Sucker season. It's Sucker season LA now. They changed the name. I'm so my bad. Look, I'm not even supposed to be wearing this. It's Sucker season LA. In addition to wages, employers typically pay 25% to 40% more of the employee's gross pay to cover mandatory taxes and benefits. And an extra 25 cents to 40 cents for every $1, and people are complaining. Let me read this again. In addition to wages, employers typically pay 25% to 40% more of the employee's gross pay to cover mandatory taxes and benefits. An extra 25 cent to 40 cent for every $1, and people are complaining. No, 100%. 100%. People don't understand that. The employer pays so you can have health care. Your employer pays so you can have dental care. They pay all that so you can have what you need as an employee. Right? And it's so funny. Imagine paying for all these things for your employee, and then your employee works every single day to undermine your business. They literally are working to put themselves out of a job. It's the stupidest thing ever. I remember a long time ago, my job asked me to take a pay cut. I said, okay, I'll take a pay cut. I took a pay cut. 2 years later, I got a huge pay raise. Imagine if I would have been like, hell no, I ain't taking no pay cut. But our company got sued by somebody for like a bunch of millions. And so he was like, yo, like, you can take a pay cut. And it was really just a slight reduction in hours. And he said, and we can like pay these people like no problem, or I got to start laying people off. You better believe I was like, I'll take the pay cut. And I was rewarded for it at the end of the day. Obedience breeds power. True story. Socialism makes no sense. Nah, 1,000%. Nobody can defend socialism. Even Barrett came up here. He's probably smarter than most tax the rich advocates. But there's just no way you're going to be able to explain how driving the rich out of the city is going to help you. You're going to drive the rich. He brought up that point about Jackson Hole. No one actually lives there. Yeah, it doesn't matter if they actually live there. That's where they're taxed. And just like New York City is a playground, the rich can just make another playground. Rich people can build the things that they want to do where they want to do them. Look at what the mob did in Vegas. New York was giving them a hard time. They literally went to Vegas and started opening up a gang of casinos. They said, fuck New York. And they made Vegas. They made the Strip. They just found a bunch of cheap land and start building casinos on it. And now Vegas is a huge city with 1 million people or more. Guys, the rich know what to do. They've been doing it for centuries. You're not going to trick them you're not going to do anything that hasn't been tried before. So what do you guys think? Do you guys think we should go into the grocery store? Because the grocery store is really going to be an interesting one. The grocery store, that's going to be a real monster. But we are at the 1 hour and 35 minute mark. I'm good. I can do it. We could go through the 10 points. We could do like 2 to 3 minutes a point, and we can get through it relatively fast. What y'all think? Give me a 1. Oh yeah, there's a whole lot of waste, fraud, and abuse at the highest level. But what y'all got to understand is, when you allow the politicians to keep taxing, to keep implementing these tax and spend policies, you get further and further away from finding the waste, fraud, and abuse. Because if they're able to tax enough to make the people feel comfortable, the minute you try to investigate, the people will fight you, because the people won't want you to find the waste or the fraud, because they feel like they'll lose their benefits if you bust the politicians who make this possible. Why do you think people who support illegal immigration vote Democrat? Because they feel like if they vote Republican, Republicans will immediately start to remove immigrants. So even if voting Democrat goes against their own best interest, they will continue to vote Democrat to protect family members, friends, etc. from deportation. They're not thinking America first. They're thinking friendship first. They're not thinking about what's best for the country. They're thinking about what's best for their personal life. They freeze the rent, then pass a bunch of new codes and regulations that the landlords and owners cannot afford to do, leaving tens of thousands more rental properties vacant, increasing the homelessness. Well, what they really want to do, proud American, is they want the landlords to not be able to keep up with the regulations, so Zohran Mamdani can seize their property. Remember, he already said that. I'm going to seize the property of slumlords. Well, if you artificially create slumlords by killing their ability to raise the rent, preventing them from raising the rent, which hampers their ability to keep up with the maintenance of the building, you are actually creating the perfect storm for the city government to be able to come in and take their property. That's why I think this whole situation is highly illegal. But see, what a lot of people don't realize is Zohran Mamdani is only 34 years old. He's still a young man. He's still an ideologue. He still really believes in a lot of things that just don't make sense in reality. And he's going to end up getting himself put in jail if he doesn't check himself. If this is not a grift, and this guy really believes he's going to be able to basically create a situation that's basically turning into like a protection racket, he's going to find himself in jail. I don't know if people know this, but there's something called antitrust laws, right? Antitrust laws are federal and state regulations designed to promote fair market competition and prevent monopolistic practices that harm consumers and business owners. See, I believe that it's going to be an antitrust claim, lawsuit made against Zohran Mamdani. You are creating an environment that makes it impossible for landlords to do business. And you're doing it purposely so the city can come in and seize their property. Ooh, MS is terrible. I need assistance. I was denied because I'm a sole proprietor. I was diagnosed with MS and was ill just because I sole proprietor business was slow. Just because your sole proprietor business was slow. Voice to text sucks. Oh, okay. Yeah, it does. They live where they can't afford to live, then want other people to subsidize their lifestyle. 100%. Zohran has never had a job. You are 100% right. No, you're right. Just buy what you need. Don't pay for anything overpriced. Hang around long enough for the rich people to lose money and they'll change their shit or leave. Right. No, yeah, we're here. I'm gonna go into the next one because Zohran is talking about another thing he's doing that's gonna destroy the city is these city-owned grocery stores. And this is even worse than the rent control. Cause I was a grocery manager for 7 years. So I know all about these city-owned grocery stores. I know all about the grocery business. And when I tell you a city-owned grocery store will not work, believe me, it will not work. There's no way in hell. And I'm going to show you exactly why it won't work. So they're going to open this up in the Bronx. This is going to have an impact way faster than the rent freeze.
We are incredibly excited about this site specifically, the timeline of the site, and that the grocery store will be the first to open by the end of next year.
Mayor Zohran Mamdani says opening the first city-run grocery store at the former site of the Spofford Juvenile Detention Facility in the Hunts Point section of the Bronx will transform what was once a site of pain into one of hope and affordability.
This was a place of failure, where young, predominantly low-income New Yorkers were subjected to brutal physical conditions, human rights violations, and physical abuse. We are reclaiming that same site to tell a very different story.
As part of the mayor's campaign promise to address the city's affordability crisis, he has vowed to open at least one city-operated grocery store in every borough before the end of his first term. Last month, the city announced that La Marqueta in East Harlem would see its city-run grocery store open by 2029. And while several businesses in Harlem expressed concerns about city-subsidized essentials creating unfair competition, Hunts Point bodega owner Javier Pacheco says as long as the city keeps its promise to only subsidize produce, he believes bodega owners will still be able to make a profit by selling tobacco, lottery tickets, beer, sandwiches, and other products that wouldn't be discounted at the city-run grocery store.
I believe they still gonna buy here. Yeah, because sometimes people don't want to go to a supermarket. It's easy for them to find it in here. Even though they might pay here a couple more cents, but they still buy here.
Pacheco also believes the 740 affordable housing units that are being built on the same campus of the nearby Peninsula development will bring new customers. Meantime, some people who live or work in the area where the nearest supermarket is about a quarter-mile away say the 2027 opening of a 20,000 square foot city-run grocery store can't come soon enough.
$100 goes about a third of the way now as it used to. You know, you used to be able to get eggs, bread, and then all your odds and ends for $100 and then do a big shopping at the end of the month. Now it's that big shopping is still chopped in half, so the amount that you get is worth the bang of the buck.
I go to Mango.
Where's that?
Okay, on the other side of White Plains Road.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the prices are very high, very expensive. Prices have gone, I could say, like 20 to 25% more than whatever it used to be.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is going to be something good for this neighborhood.
The city's Economic Development Corporation says it will continue to do outreach as well as engagement with owners of nearby bodegas and supermarkets to listen to their concerns so that city-run markets can flourish alongside them. In the Bronx, Ron Lee, New York 1.
All right, man. So all these people are idiots. I get that they're paying a lot for groceries and they're hearing Zohran say, man, I'm going to open a city-run grocery store and everything's going to be cheap, and all this stuff. Okay, we're going to start here. Guys, keep those donations flowing because I get more energized. Let's do it. We're in this thing. Okay, so problem number one. Well, we'll say this. Okay, so the idea of a city-owned and operated grocery store, it usually is brought up with good intentions, right? People are well-meaning. This is a response to what people are saying are overpriced bodegas, overpriced mini marts, and businesses that basically have to buy at market price and then mark up an item for your convenience and their profit, right? Neighborhoods where private supermarket chains have left, like Ralph's, Kroger's, and all that, because of low profitability, they have to rely on bodegas and mini marts to buy their food. And that leaves them without access to healthy food, and the variety is greatly diminished. However, what people don't understand is running a grocery store is very complex. I used to be a bookkeeper for a grocery store, so I have a understanding of this. Let me tell you something. Go try to reconcile 12 check stands on Christmas Eve, and you gonna know that the struggle is real. It's a fast-moving retail business. When you have governments or municipalities that try to run a business like this, when they try to operate it directly, they usually run into a lot of problems, which inhibit their long-term success. A government is meant to provide services. A government is not meant to run a business. In this country where we live, the people, private citizens, run the businesses. And the government's job is to make it easier to create an environment that's more conducive to them doing so. See, the government was never supposed to engage in running businesses. Our government was not designed to do that. Our city and state governments were not designed to do that. So let's get to number one, razor thin profit margins. The grocery industry is famous for its brutally tight margins. Typically, grocery stores are going to run on a 1% to 3% margin, right? That's why when you go to the store, you'll see a million boxes of Cheerios, and they have the Cheerios on the shelf in front of you. And then if you look up, you'll see like 100 more boxes of Cheerios on top of the shelf. And then if you go in the back, you're going to see like 1,000 more boxes of Cheerios in the warehouse. Well, because a grocery store is able to buy 1 million boxes of Cheerios, sell them for a markup of 5 to 10 cents, and that 10 cents multiplies to the point off of every sale to the point where the grocery store is able to pull a profit from the sale of those Cheerios, right? Private supermarkets survive because they perfectly balance high sales volume, meaning they sell a lot, against overhead cost. We're going to buy 1 million for a 15% markdown. I mean, a 15 cent reduced cost. And that 15 cents that we saved and the 15 cents that we mark it up, if we sell enough boxes of cereal, that 30 cents will cover payroll, maintenance, repairs, the management's payroll, any losses, insurance, all that. They're doing that off of little tiny margins like that. I know because I used to do the books for them. That's why when they put something on sale, if it's not selling, they mark it down quick to get it off the shelf so they can bring something in that will actually sell faster, right? If a store's costs rise, right, by even just a fraction, it immediately begins to lose money. And that's where the bookkeeper or the merchandisers and the marketers go in and figure out how we're going to make up for that loss. What are we going to mark up to make up for the loss of this particular item not selling? Governments are not really designed to do that. Governments tax the people. That's where the government gets its revenue from. And then the government redistributes those taxes where it sees fit. That's like a macro approach. So the government deals with things on a macro level. They struggle when they start having to get down to the micro and figure things out for, a privately owned or what should be a privately owned business. All right, number 2. The supply chain problem. Giant retailers like Ralph's, Kroger's, Bucks, Food Lion, right? Jewel, I forgot the name of that thing in Chicago. Jewel-Osco, right? Walmart, Aldi. They're able to succeed because of their immense buying power and their ability to vertically integrate the products that they purchase. They buy products by the millions, put it in a warehouse, and then distribute those products to their different stores that they own, right? We're going to buy 50 million bags of marshmallows, and we're going to distribute those 50 million marshmallows to all of our grocery stores all over the country. And when they sell it for a 10 or 15 cent markup, all that's going to come back to the company, and we'll be able to send the money where it sees fit, right? And what it does, because they buy in bulk, they are able to dictate to the supplier what they're going to pay for those products. They're able to haggle and negotiate with the supplier for a lower price, right? And with that, they build a highly efficient, massive network. That's called a supply chain, right? A city like New York running one grocery store, even 2 grocery stores or 5 grocery stores, right, has zero leverage with suppliers, meaning they'll have to pay significantly more for the same products than what the Walmart would pay or what Costco would pay or what Ralph's would pay. Well, that's Kroger. Kroger would pay, or Jewel-Osco would pay, because the city simply does not have the buying power that these companies have, because the city can only use whatever money is allocated to the grocery store on the grocery store. Whereas supermarkets, every single dime they bring in can be used towards handling the business of the grocery store. Whereas the city, if the grocery store goes over budget, they will have to pull from another service to make up for whatever additional costs come or unforeseen costs come with running that grocery store. See? And they don't have the ability to buy in bulk like Walmart does. So guess what? They're going to end up, in the long run, they're going to either have to charge more. So if Walmart charges you, I'll use milk, for example. Y'all go into the store to buy a gallon of milk. You know, sometimes the milk gallon be like $5. Then you go one day and the milk is $2.50. The reason why the milk went from $5 to $2.50 is because the grocery store worked out a deal with the supplier to buy more milk for a lower price per unit. And they pass that savings on to you, right? You can buy 1 million gallons of milk for $2 a gallon. No, you can buy $1 million of milk, 1 million gallons of milk for $4 a gallon. But if you buy 2 million gallons of milk, I'll sell it to you for $2 a gallon. and then you can mark it up 50 cents or $1. You make a profit, and I get rid of all this milk. And here's the thing. The grocery store has the ability to get rid of 2 million gallons of milk in a week or 2 weeks or before it expires. See, so how does one city-run grocery store get rid of? They can't buy at that capacity because they don't have enough money. And even if they were able to buy at that capacity, they couldn't get rid of the product fast enough for it before it spoils. So what does that mean? They're not going to be able to buy 2 million gallons of milk at $2 a gallon. They're only going to be able to buy 50 or 100 or 200 gallons of milk at $5 a gallon, which is the same damn price you're paying for it. So for them to make a profit, they have to charge you 2 to 3 times more than what Walmart's going to charge you, or they're going to charge you the same amount that Walmart charges you, but taxpayer dollars are going to have to make up for the $3 loss that they take every time they sell a gallon of milk. Guys, am I explaining this right? Do you guys understand the way I'm explaining this? Because when we start talking about numbers, I'm going into my grocery manager brain. And it can get a little hectic for certain people who are bums who never worked or had a job like Amin Yashid, right? Are you stupid? This is called supply. This is called a supply chain. I don't know if y'all ever sold weed or nothing, but you know, if you go to the weed dispensary, the more you buy, the cheaper it is per unit. But if a city grocery store can't buy a lot of units, they're paying closer to regular price. And the only way they can make a profit is to do what the bodegas do, which is mark the price up. Therefore, they end up selling shit for more than the grocery store, and in many cases, more than the bodegas. Come on, guys. So, y'all got to understand supply chain, dog. If you ain't never been in the field, I'm talking about, I done went to work at 5 a.m. and left work at midnight, trying to balance a safe and merchandise and all that stuff. Bring in trucks, offload the truck, doing all types of stuff. Truck drivers faking injuries, all this mess. I've dealt with that for a long time. I will never go back to the grocery store, ever. But see, people don't understand that, because when you have a mayor who has never had a real job, he doesn't understand this. He's a 35-year-old man who's never had a real job. So, of course, what he says makes sense to him. He's always had your taxpayer dollars to make it make sense. But when you get into business, when you get into business, now you're talking about, hold on. When you start doing business, you're talking about numbers, you're talking about dollars and cents. People don't want to hear that shit. People want to know how you taking their money, their taxes, is going to save them money. And really, Zohran made a promise he can't keep. There are other cities that tried this already. And it failed miserably. They failed miserably. See, but because Zohran is like, I would say, an immigrant, he doesn't really know history in America. He probably barely knows American history, so I bet he doesn't know the history of different American cities. And if he did, he would know, this has been tried and this has failed. But it really doesn't matter to him, because his only job is to get elected. He doesn't care about, he knows that people, Zohran learned something about America. People will keep voting for you if you keep promising them free stuff. You don't got to tell them how you're going to do it. Just tell them you're going to do it. And that leads us to our third thing: perishables and constant agility, right? That's flexibility. Managing inventory. Do y'all know what inventory is? Shout out to my boy Ali in the building. What up, bro? We're burning the midnight oil. Trump actually was a businessman. He ran businesses and built skyscrapers in New York. If anyone knows about numbers, it's Trump, right? That's why he does well. That's why he did well in his business. So managing inventory in a grocery store requires the ability to make quick decisions, right? Produce, meat, dairy, all those are perishable items. They rot quickly. If a shipment of bananas is turning brown, you know people don't like to eat bananas when they brown, even though they're sweeter when they're brown, so I don't know why people don't like that. A grocery manager, which is what I was, I can just make a decision. Mark that down, throw that away, donate that to the food bank, send that back because it was rotten when it got here. Tell them we need a credit for this. These are the decisions that you can make on the spot. I was empowered to do that, right? But here's the problem. In a city-run grocery store, a bureaucracy-run grocery store, who actually is empowered to make quick decisions? If the manager of the store sees something rotten, or he receives a almost expired crate of milk, does he have to go back to the mayor to get approval to send that back and demand a credit? Or to, like, I remember one time working at the grocery store, we had a sale. I think it was on Cinnamon Toast Crunch cereal. And it was we were selling it for super cheap because we were trying to get rid of it for a new shipment that was coming in. And we forgot to put the limit 2 on the sign. So this Asian guy, got a gnat in here. So this Asian guy, I guess he owns like a store or something. That guy came in with his family, and bro filled up a whole pallet with cereal and came through and was like, you need to honor this sale because you didn't put a limit. Now, what do? You argue with the guy, tell him, no, you forgot to do it, so you got to put it back. He calls corporate. Now you're getting chewed out by your district manager, this dude named Dennis. I hated him. And he comes in and he's freaking poking his chest out and talking shit to you. And trust me, you getting cussed out. All that professionalism shit go out the window when you talking about money and corporations. Or you honor that. And then you say, damn, okay, call every store in the district and ask them, do they have any more Cinnamon Toast Crunch? And the store in your district that has it is Hollywood. So you basically get an employee who has a pickup truck and y'all drive that truck all the way to Hollywood and they give you like 500 units of Cinnamon Toast Crunch and you're on the freeway driving with a truck full of Cinnamon Toast Crunch in a pickup, trying to get it back to your store so you will be able to supply the demand for that sale that doesn't end for 3 or 4 more days. I've done that before. But that's, as a manager, you are empowered to make those decisions. Is the city-run grocery store going to be run like that? Or will it be all this red tape and approvals needed and rubber stamps and sign-offs and all this stuff just to get small things done? That's usually the way things work when they're run by the government. That's why you hate going to the DMV. That's why you hate going to the IRS building. That's why you hate going to the county building to get your EBT and your welfare. Because it's a bureaucracy. By nature, it's meant to run slowly. It's meant to have a lot of processes just for one thing to get done, right? So how are they going to compete? What unique things are they going to do to deal with that, to solve that problem, to expedite decision making? Zohran is not telling you any of this. We're just going to open up a grocery store and you're going to love it. Will they have the agility necessary to be able to give people what they want, which is lower prices? They're already not going to be able to give people lower prices. I'll tell you that right now. And if they do give you a low price, with the volume that they're able to acquire, to handle, it's going to be very cheap, very inferior products. Trust me. You're going to be eating Stalinos or some type of ridiculous product that you never even heard of. Some shit that they didn't flew in from Mexico or something. So the next one is number 4. Rigid operational and labor costs. I'm damn near having flashbacks of working at that damn grocery store. So rigid operational and labor costs. So city governments, right? They generally operate under civil service rules, union structures. They have strict hiring guidelines. Usually the guidelines existed long before the people who are currently managing the city were even thought of or ever thought about running for office. Now, this is good for public sector jobs, right? But this rigidity, right? It makes it difficult to manage a retail business. Grocery stores need flexible schedules. People can't always work, right? People have birthday parties. People's kids get sick. People want to go on vacation. People have surgery, all this stuff. They're able to do things like seasonal hiring, right? Temporary hiring. They let people go after a couple of months just to deal with the fact that their permanent workers might not be able to be there consistently during rough patches like the holidays, right? This is all summed up as being, able to adjust to things quickly, right? You can even adjust labor hours based on daily foot traffic. If your sales and your foot traffic goes up by 20%, right, for the holiday, you can just, the manager, I can just say, hey, I'm going to hire 2 or 3 more people. And I'm going to say, hey, you're on probation for 3 months. You do something, you're gone. I have the power to do that. But when your grocery store is city run, who does the hiring? How quickly can you hire somebody? How do you pay them? How much do you pay them? Because if they work for the city government, they're going to want to get paid according to the cost of living, which means you're going to be paying way more than what the national chains are paying their workers. You're going to be paying way more than what the bodega is paying its workers. So now the payroll is going to immediately be way higher than what the payroll is for your competition. So how do you make up for that if you're not even able to match the sales of your competition? You got to take from the taxpayer. You have to take the taxpayer's money to pay the person who works at the taxpayer-run grocery store that doesn't make a profit because they're not able to do the volume necessary to sell enough units to make a profit, right? So then you have to use taxpayer dollars to make up for that, to artificially deflate the prices so people can feel like they're actually getting a better deal at the government-run grocery store than if they went to Walmart or to Kroger or to Jewel Osco or Food Lion. Are y'all following me on this? And I realize that liberals, they don't like to think. They don't like to think past how they feel. But when you really just lay this out, and I know there was somebody who laid this out for Zohran, and he went right past it. He didn't even think about it. Right? Like this person telling me, go get a real job, bro. This is stupid. These are the type of people who vote for Zohran Mamdani. I'm hurting this person's feelings. The truth is hurting this person's feelings. They don't like it, so now they mad at me. Let me ban this person. Right? But if you really think about this, there's no way this is going to work. And if it does work, if this becomes a vanity project for Zohran Mamdani, it's actually going to end up costing the people of New York a lot of money. And you got this guy Zion. He's so intelligent. We're at war, millions and billions of dollars sent to foreign countries for no reason. And you're over here crying over a grocery store. Quite frankly, shut the F up. Do you realize, can I tell you something? Let me tell you a fact, Zion. And Zion, you can have the link too. There's a link for you since you want to curse. Here's the thing. Let me tell you guys, can I tell y'all a secret? Put a 1 in the comments if you want me to tell you a secret. Put a 1 in the comments if you want me to tell you a secret about economics that you have never learned. No one's ever taught you this. You could definitely use this for conversation going forward. Can I tell you, give me my 1s, and I'm going to really start teaching up in here for idiots like Zion, right? Okay. There was a debate about opening up grocery stores like what Zohran wanted to open in New York all over the United States. Government-owned and operated grocery stores that allow people to get cheap prices as if they were shopping at a military commissary, right? Okay. Let me tell you this. This is just like universal health care. Universal health care. Every country has universal health care. These dudes said this. This dude argued this to me. He said, we have money for war. We spent $30 billion in Iran in 3 months. Can I tell you guys a secret? I'm going to tell you right now. Pay attention. Get your notepad out. You can fact check this. Running universal health care, where everyone in America gets free health care from top to bottom, in 2 years would cost more than what we paid for every single war that we fought since the first Desert Storm. Every war we have fought since the first Desert Storm, all the way up until today, doesn't even come close in cost to what it would cost to provide universal health care to all Americans for 2 years. Why do you think when you see politicians say universal health care, they say, how are you going to pay for it? Every single war we fought since Desert Storm number 1 in the 90s combined wouldn't even pay for the money we spent, wouldn't even pay for universal health care for 2 years for all Americans. This is how stupid this guy is. Look it up. When people compare war spending to things like universal health care and government-run grocery stores, you understand quickly that these people don't understand basic economics. Yes, imagine free health care for 33 million people. It ain't like you're spending $1 a person. And then all the illegal immigrants y'all want to pay for. No, I'm not. That's a fact. That's a fact. But you guys don't care about the facts. But on this channel, it's facts over feelings. You can run away, but you will eventually be made to look stupid when you build up the courage to take these arguments to people who actually do the numbers. No, this is a fact. This is a fact. I don't need to lie to you. I do not need to lie to you. I'm sharing the facts with you. If y'all don't like the facts, that's on y'all. Look, I'll do this right here. Let's share this. Well, I'll ask AI right in front of you. Let me go here. Here, I think this is AI. I could ask AI right here. Let's switch this to ask. Okay. Can I use this? No, I can't. For whatever reason. Okay. Okay, right here. I just typed it in for you. You lie. You guys, you know when you guys say I'm lying, you remind me of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles when Shredder told him that he killed Splinter. You lie. But here's the thing. What you don't know is in the movie The Ninja Turtles, the turtles were only like teenagers. So I understand them being hyper emotional and ignorant. You guys are grown-ups. Y'all grown folks, just ignorant out in these streets. Look, let's read it together. Let's read it together. I know this is hurting y'all feelings, but it's not my fault. You just don't, many people in America do not understand basic economics. Their mother and father never taught them anything about economics. Okay, so let's go here. Providing universal free health care to every U.S. citizen is estimated to cost between $2.5 trillion and $4.4 trillion a year, roughly $25 to $44 trillion over 10 years. So in 10 years, it will cost us more than what the American economy is worth to provide universal free health care for all Americans, depending on the scope of coverage and assumed savings from administrative efficiencies and price negotiations. So once you do that, since this is going to cost us every penny we have, what are you going to spend for military defense? What are you going to spend for Social Security? What are you going to spend for infrastructure? What are you going to spend for welfare, food stamps, Section 8? What are you going to spend for financial aid for college students? What are you going to spend for Americans with disabilities or veterans? See, it would take our entire budget, every penny, and some more money, right? Then you go down here. Yes, this number is significantly greater than the total cost of every war the U.S. has fought since 9/11. And I'll do you better. Let me see. Let me go down here. Let me see if I can ask again. Damn, where's the damn thing? I don't even know how to ask again. But yes. Annual health care costs exceed total war costs. Right? See, what we spend as Americans as private, with our private insurance, That totals $3 trillion a year. Understand that. Annual healthcare costs exceeds total war costs. The annual cost of implementing universal healthcare at the lower end is 2.5 to 3 trillion a year. It's already nearly 1/3 to 1/2 of the entire 25-year cumulative cost of post 9/11 wars at 8 trillion. So 1 year of universal health care literally is almost half of the total cost for 25 years of war. Over a decade, the cost of universal health care, 25 to 44 trillion, would be 3 to 5 times higher than the total cost of these wars. Break down the war cost. The 8 trillion figure for post 9/11 conflicts include military spending in Iraq, Syria, Afghanistan, shit you ain't even thinking about. Homeland security, future obligations. While the cost of universal health care is vastly higher than war spending, it is important to note that the U.S. already spends roughly 4.9 to 5.3 trillion annually on healthcare under the current system. Universal healthcare proposals generally aim to redirect existing private spending, premiums, out-of-pocket costs into public financing, rather than adding entirely new costs on top of current expenditures. In contrast, war spending represents additional federal outlays funded largely through borrowing. So we're already spending trillions on healthcare. And y'all like, let's spend trillions more. You don't know what it costs to do war. And it makes sense because you're not a government employee or an elected official. No, it doesn't. You're dumb as hell. Dude, let me tell you something. Do you notice that most countries with universal health care, they don't have a military? Their military is like, they use the United States as their military. And then they still have to tax the shit out of the citizens to make it work. And their country breaks under that burden. And the healthcare is shitty. I'm telling you, look, man, y'all say what y'all want. 2 years of universal health care is more expensive than 25 years of war. End of story. End of discussion. You said a lot, but you were wrong. You just don't want to accept it. And you don't have to accept it. You don't have to, but them's the facts. And any politician who lied to you, yeah, we can do universal health care, they're lying to you. I live in California. This is the most liberal state there is. When those people were on stage running for governor, somebody started talking about universal health care. And guess what? Every Democrat on stage said, yeah, but how are you going to pay for it? They can't figure out how to pay for it because it's too expensive, especially with the level of care that Americans expect. You don't want to be using recycled needles, do you? You don't want to be waiting. Man, there's this thing, I forgot what it's called, but in Canada, say you get a broken arm and you're like over 75 years old. They'll give you something called, it's called MAM or MAD or something. It's like government assisted death. SAD or something. You guys might know what it is. Yeah. You break your arm in one of these countries and you're over 70 and they're like, would you prefer to opt for the government helping you kill yourself so we don't actually have to provide you with medical care? Shut up, Zion. You sound stupid. Stop funding NATO. Stop doing it. It don't matter. You could take all that money. It still ain't going to pay for universal health care, bro. You're just goofy. You're goofy. Anyway, so the next reason why government-sponsored grocery stores won't work is the service versus business conflict. When a private store loses money, right? It just closes or it changes its business model because it has to survive. When a government-run store loses money, it creates a political dilemma. If the city keeps subsidizing the store using taxpayer money, it drains funds from other essential city services like roads, schools, policing, maintenance, etc. If the city raises prices to cover its losses, it defeats the purpose of the store existing, because the whole purpose of the store was to give people lower prices. See? So the store can't operate like a true free market economy business, because the store has to guarantee, it has made a guarantee that it can't break. It's made a promise that it has to keep. So now, when unforeseen circumstances happen, which they will, the store has no vehicle with which to make up for losses, like raising prices, laying people off, or changing its business model, right? It was created for one reason. And if it cannot operate in a way that fulfills the reason for its creation, lives up to the reason for its creation, the store either has to take taxpayer money to artificially reduce prices and keep the store afloat, which defeats the purpose, because now taxpayers are just paying more money in a different way to trick themselves into believing they're getting lower grocery prices. That defeats the purpose, right? There was a town in Kansas. Well, there were towns in Florida, Erie, and Kansas that experimented with city-run grocery stores when their local grocery stores closed down. Within a few years, these stores faced consistent monthly financial losses and stiff competitions from stores like the Dollar General, the Dollar Tree, 99 cents only stores, right? They were in competition with these stores. And big box retail stores like Walmart, Costco, right? Ultimately, all these cities ended up closing their city-run grocery stores, right? The city of Baldwin ultimately closed its grocery store, just like Chicago. Chicago had a city-run grocery store. They closed it. I mean, it's the same. It's the same. It's gonna happen the same way in New York. You could believe whatever you want. It's gonna play out the same exact way, because you have stores that could come in, and because they have huge supply chains, they can undercut you. You can buy a steak at the Dollar Tree for like $1. I was in the Dollar Tree a long time ago, and they were selling like little pre-packed steaks. You could buy deodorant in there, canned goods, chips, soda, all that stuff for $1. How does the state-run grocery store, how does the city-run grocery store compete with that? That's my question. How do they compete with that? They can't. They can't. It don't matter what you say. People will buy that when they were trying to save money. People will literally, man, look, bro, I'm black, right? Black people will open stores and be like, oh, this store is black owned. I've watched black people walk directly past a black owned store to go to an Asian owned store to pay $1 less. At the end of the day, people are people. They want the lowest price. They're not going to consistently give you more money for an idea. And that's what this is. The passion project of an ideologue. We have this store in Long Beach called Ethically. The lady doesn't even make a profit. Her prices are astronomically high. But she wants to have the free trade sourced and ethically sourced products, right? So she opened this store for the hippies, right? The hippies can't even afford to shop there. Nobody, disenfranchised, none of the people who she claims to care about and wants to help, none of them can afford to shop at her store. Because at a certain point, you have to let go of the what is it called when you have all this these good intentions, but they end up just working out bad in real life. You got to let go of the fantasy and you got to look at the reality. There's a reason why Walmart is so big. There's a reason why Target is so big. There's a reason why Pick and Save went out of business. I'm telling you, you could live in fantasy all you want, but eventually when you start talking about dollars and cents, right? It's over. It's over for you. The fantasy dies. When you start talking about dollars and cents, the fantasy dies, man. You now have to come into the adult world with everybody else, and you got to start doing things that are profitable. So I'm going to give you 10 questions that when someone starts asking, starts talking about government-run grocery stores and all this nonsense, right? These are questions that you can ask them, right? And let me change this banner real quick. I'm going to give you some questions. All right, 10 questions for a socialist grocery store advocate. People like Zion, right? I wish Zion would come up here. I would ask him these questions directly, right? Okay, they mad. Look, I didn't hurt their feelings because now they name calling. Bro, do you want to get deleted? I could delete you and your comments. Anyway, so here we go. 10 questions for a socialist. Question number 1. If for the people who want to open a socialist government controlled grocery store. Question number 1. If the store runs out of milk, who goes to jail? See, when a privately owned store loses money, if they run out of milk or they make a mistake, they lose money. That's the punishment. But when government workers make a mistake, they usually just get to blame it on the budget or the committee or the mayor or somebody else, right? The person above them. Oh, it's this person's fault. What happens when things start to go wrong in that store? Do you have real accountability? Are there real consequences? Will the store go out of business, or will they just keep stealing your taxpayer dollars to keep the store running to salvage Zohran Mamdani's ego? This is a real question you need to ask yourself. Question number 2. If a private store loses money, it closes. If a city store loses, a city-owned grocery store loses money, do you raise taxes on the citizens to keep it open in the name of giving them cheaper groceries? And would the hike in taxes cancel out their savings on groceries? How do you handle this situation? Because we're losing money, we're hemorrhaging money. A normal store would say we're going to close the doors. We don't have enough money to stay profitable. But yet you got all these people expecting you to keep this store here selling them groceries for cheap. Well, do you go steal from them on the back end to give them the illusion of paying lower prices? Nobody wants to answer that question. Let's go to the next one, number 3. Walmart can buy 1 million boxes of cereal at a huge discount. How can one city store or even 5 city stores compete with Walmart's prices? How can you give your citizens cereal for a cheaper price than Walmart? For a cheaper price than Target? For a cheaper price than Kroger? You can't. How about this? How can you give them cereal for a cheaper price than the Dollar Tree or the Dollar General or the Family Dollar? You can't. Small operations lack the scale and buying power to offer truly low prices. That's why when you go buy from the little small store, everything costs damn near double what it costs at Walmart. And while people will love having your store around in the neighborhood, after the fuzzy feeling wears off, they're going to be right on that train going uptown to Walmart to get what they need. And your store is going to go out of business unless you artificially, you keep it alive with taxpayer dollars. 4th question. If the city store has terrible customer service and rotten fruit, who can I complain to that actually has the power to fire the manager? See, bureaucracies are notorious for not holding their employees accountable. That's why when you go to the welfare office or the DMV, everybody in there is giving you an attitude, smacking gum, but no matter how much you complain, they'll never get fired. Right? This is a big difference from privately owned businesses where you can just complain to corporate or decide to just go shop somewhere else, which is what people will do when they are inevitably treated rudely by an entitled, overpaid government employee that happens to be working in the government-owned grocery store. Here's the next question. Question number 5. If the bananas are turning brown today, can the cashier at the government-run grocery store lower the price right now to get rid of it, to sell it quickly? Or do they have to talk to the mayor? Government rules by procurement systems, right? Government procurement systems, they move slow as hell. They're bureaucratic in nature. They move way too slowly to be able to actively manage perishable items, milk, eggs, cheese, bread, right? You have to have some type of management structure. In order to have a management structure, you have to pay a management structure. In order to pay a management structure, then a management team, you have to bring in enough revenue to pay that management team. And when I tell you that paying for management teams is not cheap. Do you know how much a grocery manager makes at Kroger? Those dudes are making over $100,000 a year. They were making that when I worked at the grocery store way back in 2007. So I'm sure they're making closer to $200,000 a year now. And then you got to incentivize them. Why should we come work for you instead of going to work for Walmart? See? That's what people don't understand. But anyway, next question, 6. Why do you think the government will be great at running a grocery store when people already hate waiting in line at the DMV or at the post office? This literally connects the idea to an existing relatable example of government inefficiency. We're going to let the people who have us sitting at the DMV for 3-4 hours to basically do a very simple job. You go to the DMV, all you're doing is walking up to the window, handing them your money, they're handing you tags or handing you registration, and you're done. Why does it take them 3 hours to service 10 people? When you go to a grocery store, they get 10 people doop, 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 beep, beep, beep. They get through 10 people in like less than 3 minutes. But when you go to the DMV, it's 3 hours for them to service 10 people, right? And they've been doing the job for 20 years, 40 years, 30 years because they're not meant to be efficient. And when you go to buy groceries, that's not something that you want to be a long, drawn-out process. Number 7, if a new private grocery store wants to open across the street, will the city government let them open, or will they purposely ban competition? Government businesses often use their legal power to crush competition rather than outcompete them fairly because they can. Soon as that government-owned store opens, someone's going to open a store right across the street. Unless the city passes a law that says you can't open any other stores within a 2 or 3 or 5 mile radius of this store, which is something Zohran might do. Question number 8. Who chooses what food goes on the shelves? A business owner trying to please customers or a politician that's trying to please voters? Because you know what's going to happen, right? They're going to open the store. People are going to want certain things. But then the people who have the most influence over the mayor are going to say, no, make it halal. Make it vegan. Make it organic. Make it ethically sourced. See, their demands and expectations will just keep going up. And what's going to happen is the price is going to go up. And essentially what you're going to have is a mini Whole Foods that only the rich can afford to shop at. Only Zohran Mamdani's fellow wealthy ideologues will be able to actually afford to shop at that store, because that's what wealthy ideologues do. They start off helping you, and then the next minute they create a standard that is impossible for you to live up to. Trust me, I live in California. All the do-gooder coffee shops, yes, we donate this much money to the latte is $15. So the regular people ain't going to shop there and buy coffee. You're actually discriminating against them in the name of helping them. This is what entitled ideologues do. Okay, so question number 9 is what happens to our cities, parks, roads, and police if we have to spend all our budget fixing a broken grocery store? Resources are not finite. Resources are limited. Funding of failing commercial business drains money from essential public services. But if this is a vanity project, somebody like Zohran will continue to fund this even if they know that it's a failure, because that's just his nature. Last question, number 10. If city-run stores are such a great idea, why did the ones that tried it, like the store in Baldwin, Florida, end up losing money and closing down? There are real-world examples of this that already exist. There's already a history around this. And I'm sure someone has brought this history up to Zohran Mamdani. What kind of mayor does something that he knows is going to be a failure, or either it's going to cost taxpayers millions of dollars? Why would he still do it? Just to quote unquote fulfill a campaign promise. When I tell you Zohran Mamdani is just checking boxes, so when he runs for re-election, he can say, I told you I'd do this and I did it. And I told you I'd do this and I did it. As soon as he gets elected again, he's going to let all that shit go. When a government forces things like rent control, they have these high-minded ideas like government-run grocery stores. When a government in a capitalist country tries to force socialism upon the population, it never works. Americans are capitalists at their core. We like to earn our money and keep our money. And while there's certain individuals who are willing to destroy themselves in the name of getting something free, the majority of Americans see straight through this scam. We know they're going to try to bring it to a city near us, and we're going to reject it. And we'll allow you to live in your socialist utopia where you have no businesses, no variety, no choice, no options, right? Where you're basically in a monkey trap, where you're captured by your inability to let go of economically unattainable goals, economically impossible ideas. But it's your right. It's your right to believe in imaginary things if you want to. What do you take for free? I don't take anything. Nobody's limiting you. The sky is the limit in America, bro. Trust me. Let's see. Canada's population is 1/10 of America's, and they still have longer ER visits, for real. And I was telling people about the death thing. They will kill you. It's called, I forget what it's called, but it's assisted death. There's a name for the system. Canada I just gave this example. If you break your arm in Canada and you're over like 60 years old, they will ask you if you would like to volunteer for government assisted suicide. A lady, she had tore her ACL in her knee. She was like 50. She said they sent her a letter asking would she be interested in government assisted suicide. I'm trying to figure out. Oh, it's called MAID. It's called MAID. And go on any forum talking about Canadian universal health, man. I hate when Americans compare themselves to Canada. Canada. It's called MAID. Right here. Canada legalized medical assistance in dying in June 2016, following a Supreme Court ruling, Carter versus Canada, that deemed the criminal ban on assisted dying unconstitutional. The practice allows eligible adults to request a physician or nurse practitioner to administer a substance causing death or to self-administer such a substance. Initially restricted to those whose natural death was reasonably foreseeable, the law has undergone significant expansion, making Canada's regime one of the most permissive in the world. But they offer you this. They literally would just be like, oh, you're old and you have like the flu. Would you like us to help you die? Who wants to live in a country like that? That's some freaking 1984 shit. Razor, 100%. Easier to kill you than pay your bills, 100%. They don't care about your life. Zion, here's the thing about universal health care. If you don't want it, if you don't have to have it. It's for the people who can't afford effing health care. Like the majority of America. Razor, you sound stupid. There's all types of health care subsidies in America. What are you talking about? You're just a person who is extremely dumb, and your ignorance, you weaponize it against people who know more than you. I live in California. If I have no money, let me go right here. I live in Los Angeles County. Let me help you. Let me educate you before I get off of here. Okay, there's this thing called AI. It's really fascinating. You should use it, Zion. You're an idiot. Right here. Okay. If I live in Los Angeles and have $0 and I get sick, where can I receive free medical treatment? How about I say something like, I break my arm and I break my arm. Where can I receive free subsidized medical treatment? Okay. We don't have people who can't. Now, I want you to read this dummy's comment. Here's the thing about universal health care. If you don't want it, you don't have to have it. It's for the people who can't afford fucking health care. And you know he's a liberal because they always say fucking, right? Like, you don't have to curse. You know, like the majority of America, here you go right here. If you live in Los Angeles County with zero income, you can receive completely free medical treatment for a broken arm through the Ability to Pay program at any LA County hospital or clinic because your income is at or below 138% of the federal poverty line. You qualify for no cost care, covering emergency room visits, surgery, casts, and follow-up appointments without fear of immigration consequences. This is why illegal immigrants come here, and this is why we keep telling you, this is why we keep telling y'all, illegal immigrants get free health care. No, they don't. Illegal immigrants don't get free health care. Yes, they do. But you also can take advantage of this too. But it doesn't matter about immigration status. Immediate emergency care. Right here. You go to any LA County hospital emergency room. Under the Ability to Pay Act, you will get treated at no cost. You do not need insurance or money up front. Financial screening occurs after you are stabilized. The county explicitly states that general relief patients and those with income under 138% of the federal poverty level always receive a care at no cost. This includes all medically necessary services for a fracture, x-rays, reduction, setting the bone, casting, and pain management. You have universal health care. You have free health care in America. But you're just too dumb to know it. You just want it to be called universal health care. We got a real genius in here. It's funny, your cousin tried to come at me for not being from LA or Long Beach and that I shouldn't act like I know what is really happening out there. How would you respond seeing as how you are talking about a city 3,000 miles from where you live? Dude, what are you talking about? It doesn't matter where it is. You could talk about a city in Nova Scotia. I'll tell you, socialism doesn't work. There are international examples, domestic examples of socialism not working. But you guys see that? People just don't know anything and then just be like, oh, this doesn't exist. Yeah, it usually does exist. You just usually have never had to use it. But that's what socialism and liberalism is. People who don't need something swearing up and down that someone else needs it. And so they're going to be their advocate. Why don't you worry about you? And you let them worry about them. And I promise you, they will find what they need when they need it. If you get hurt, come to LA, they'll treat you for free. Boom. I'm telling you guys, these people just want to hear the word universal health care. That's real. I live in California. Women and children are guaranteed health care in California. Guaranteed. You have a child in California, that child will get free medical care. Guaranteed. They just want to hear someone say universal health care standing in front of a podium so they could cheer. These people are ignorant. Oh, now you want to start insulting me because I made you look stupid, huh? You want to insult me because I made you look dumb. The reality is you made you look dumb, buddy. Sir, I really want to meet your family. They raised you with critical thinking skills. No, I have a family. And any man who has a family does his family a disservice. He's a danger to his family if he lacks critical thinking skills. That's what these people don't understand. You have to think as a man, and it's your job to know what's available to you just in case. You never know. There's a hospital called Harbor UCLA or Harbor General. It's right in Torrance. You go there, everything's free. Excuse me. I have friends who are rich. They don't pay for health insurance. They just go to that hospital. Something goes wrong, it's a long ass wait. You're gonna be waiting for a minute, but you ain't gonna pay nothing. I kid you not. I had a rich friend. This lady almost died. She was up in there, and a friend of hers who was a doctor came in to see her, and they were literally like, "You need to start preparing for her final her funeral and all this stuff." And her friend who was a doctor came to visit her to basically say goodbye, and realized that they hadn't inserted a catheter in her. So what was making her deathly sick was there was a buildup of urine, which is toxic, inside her bladder. She didn't pee for like 3 or 4 days. Like 3 or 4 days. And that will kill you. Thank God that her doctor friend came to see her and he saved her life. Oh yeah, New York is going down. New York is going down. I got a guy in here. This guy say who? I know this guy personally. This guy literally owns a trucking company, but wants to be a bleeding heart liberal. He wants socialism, all this stuff. This guy literally owns a trucking company, and he's out here talking about free shit. That's what I'm telling you. When you know these people personally, you know they're just ideologues. They're just whiny little brats, little spoiled babies, dude. Get out and work for what you want. Go drive that damn truck. California just took away 17,000 driver's licenses, Class A or Class B or whatever, commercial driver's licenses from illegal immigrants in our state. Bro could come out here, back out here, because he lived out here, and just make a killing. You need a job? I got a guy. Hey, say who? You want to make some money? I got a friend who has a dump truck. He has a couple of contracts. He's working every day, and he's looking for a driver. You want to come out here and work? I got a job for you. I know this guy personally. Come on, you got that truck driver's license. You had a trucking company. You want to work? You want to stop crying and earn a living? Come out here. My boy got a job for you. Driving a dump truck. I know you know how to drive a dump truck. I got you. See, it's that easy. These people don't want to work. These people want somebody to steal from another person and hand it to them. That's the problem. They want somebody to steal from the rich and just hand it to them. Damn, it's been 30 minutes already. Shit. That's all they want. And I'm not buying that. I'm not like feeding into that nonsense. Work for what you want. You're a grown ass man. You're a grown ass man, dog. Stop trying to take from people who are willing to work so that you can live for free. That's America. A bunch of able-bodied, lazy people who want to rob somebody so they could get a free handout. No way. Sahu, stop bitching and complaining. I got a job for you. Come back to California. Stop sleeping or living wherever you at. I got a job for you. You're going to get paid. You're going to work every day. And you're going to drive this dump truck. Man, what are you talking about? That is how a CDL work. Bro could freaking drive a dump truck with a CDL. People be saying, Masan, shut up, Masan. Where's your super chat for daring to challenge me? Hard to get a job Northeast, especially if you are from the West Coast. West Coast people lazy as fuck in general, so not get hired as often up here. I don't know, man. I think there are lazy people everywhere. Oh yeah, he got a CDL and smokes weed. Yeah, you ain't lying. You ain't lying. Actually, I think bro do smoke weed. You still smoke weed, Sahu? Damn, how did you know? How is it that this person know? Because why? We know the type, right? It's a certain type of person who has a skill, has a trade, but is crying about handouts. That dude does smoke weed. He does smoke weed. But he's not from the West Coast. He's from New York. He's from Far Rockaway. So he knows the deal up there. Bro just don't want to do nothing with himself right now. Bro want to sit over here and fucking cry and hope that a Democrat get in and give him free stuff. Shout out to D, man. All right, guys, we're gonna get out of here, man. This was a heavy lift. This was a heavy lift, man. It's 11 p.m. here. I know it's later for y'all, but y'all was rocking with your boy. I appreciate that. And somebody left me a $5 super chat that I didn't get to read. Just know that I remember it. Excuse me. God. I think I'm getting sick. Just know that I saw it. I'll look for it, but I couldn't find it. Y'all been busy up in these comments. It's up, man. It's up. One is the loneliest number. But yeah, what's this? Okay. Oh, here we go. Shout out to my boy Merk. That's one of my day ones for the $5 holla, brother. I appreciate that. And then somebody just dropped a $10 Dr. Butt-Toot. Dr. Butt-Toot. $10 holler. I appreciate that, Doc. You hit the nail on the head for sure. Because I forgot that fool smoked weed. Yep. Weed. Marijuana, the great motivation killer, man. The great motivation killer. I didn't even think about that, Sahu. You out there smoking on that tweed, boy? You over there smoking on the devil's lettuce? Out there in Far Rockaway, boy? Let me find out. Thank you so much, Dr. Butt-Toots. That was a great name. But guys, I'm going to get out of here, man. Thank y'all so much for joining me. We'll be back tomorrow. Till the next time, take care of yourselves. But most importantly, do me a favor, man. Stop being lazy. Get a damn job and take care of each other. Peace.